I left due to family neglect. Now, my parents suddenly want me back to help and take responsibility for my siblings. Out of the 5, I am the youngest. The next sibling is 7 years older than me, so when I say youngest, I don't mean by a little margin. Growing up, I must admit, I always felt invisible. My parents seemed to believe that since I wasn't ill or struggling with mental health concerns like the rest of my siblings, I didn't require their attention. I don't mean to sound dramatic, but this is the reality. The others were in and out of therapy or hospitals all the time. I, the so-called glass child, was merely there in the meantime. Even if you can see me, you don't pay much attention to me. I was okay with that, for the most part. I read a great deal, played video games, and kept to myself a lot. Since there wasn't really anyone else nearby to amuse me, I learned to do it myself. I didn't have to look after my siblings, at least. Some individuals talk of giving up their childhoods to care for their siblings, but I wasn't in that position. I give credit where credit is due because my parents took care of everything. However, I just went between the cracks because, unlike my brothers, I wasn't creating trouble or experiencing crises all the time. I didn't get any help because I didn't need it. I don't believe my parents intentionally did this. The healthy child becomes an afterthought when you have 4 kids who are always battling health problems. I became the quiet kid who didn't draw attention because my parents were too busy taking care of the others' medical appointments, school meetings, and hospital stays. Not in a tragic, dramatic sense, but rather in a pragmatic, we've got our hands full sense. I was invisible. I wasn't all alone. Mia and Clara were the 2 companions I had when I was younger. We clicked because they and their families were in comparable circumstances. We linked because we knew what it felt like to be disregarded and excluded. They eventually grew closer to me than my biological family ever was. After high school, we remained close, attended college together, graduated together, and finally relocated to a different state because we were inseparable. Using the fragments that our real families were unable to supply, we created our own small family. After I moved out, my parents and I didn't communicate much. We didn't talk much when I was still living there, so that wasn't shocking. Occasionally, my mother would text me, primarily to inquire about my employment or how school was going. Even if our relationship was superficial, it was better than when I was a teenager and we hardly spoke. I didn't ask for much, and I didn't expect much from them either. During one of my mom's phone calls, the disconnect really got to me. Considering that we had never phoned one another, it was unexpected. I could tell right away that something was wrong. About a year had passed since our last phone conversation, when she called to let me know the time and location of one of my sister's funerals. That was the extent of our communication. She called me this time to find out my Thanksgiving arrival time. I didn't even realize they were planning anything, so I was taken aback. We didn't have any significant family customs. I think they attempted to do Thanksgiving or Christmas maybe 3 times in my entire childhood. In my family, it simply didn't exist. I informed her that I had plans beforehand. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't just drop everything and come over because I had plans to go skiing with Mia and Clara. In addition, I would have had to purchase an airline ticket well in advance because I reside 2 states away. My mother, however, pretended that I was simply being challenging. She began guilt-tripping me by claiming that she would be by herself because my dad was traveling 2 hours to visit my brother at the facility where he is housed. I knew how she felt, but she hardly told me and thought I would just appear out of nowhere to cheer her up. She became irate and accused me of not caring about the family when I informed her I couldn't come. She hung up after I reiterated that I already had arrangements. I sat there feeling angry and guilty after the call. Suddenly, I was the bad person for not dropping everything to travel home for Thanksgiving, even though I hadn't heard from them in a very long time. There was nothing about Thanksgiving or wanting to see me as I went over old texts to see if I had missed anything. She expected me to cooperate and just threw it at me at the last minute. Later that evening, I texted her to let her know that I would love to see her and Dad after the new year, but I couldn't make it because I had a ski trip scheduled for Christmas as well. I made an effort to be kind, but she didn't respond. I remained uneasy a few days later. My mother's attempts to blame me for not returning home bothered me for some reason. She guilt-tripped me with an unexpected call, but she never told me they were having Thanksgiving. They seemed to think I could read their minds. I had already moved on and was preparing for the ski trip by that point. Clara, Mia, and I had spent months organizing it, and we were all thrilled. We were eager to unwind because it had been a long time since we had enjoyed a real holiday. Suddenly, I received an SMS from my father. I thought that was significant because he doesn't text me very often. Rather, he threatened to stop funding my college education if I didn't return home for Christmas. Since I graduated years ago, I initially chuckled. Which payments? I had to read the material again to make sure I wasn't missing anything because it was so arbitrary. I assumed he was referring to one of my siblings or was simply confused. Reminding him that I had already graduated, I texted him back. I also advised him to check his bank account because he might be duped if he believed he was still paying for my tuition. I assumed that would be the end of it and that when he found out I was no longer enrolled in school, he would feel ashamed. However, a few hours later, he texted me again, accusing me of being ungrateful and self-centered. He blasted me for not appreciating all of the sacrifices they had made for me and my brothers. To begin with, I never made any requests of them. Second, my grandma was the one who paid for my college, thus I was unaware that they were obligated to do so. She handled everything herself because she had made it clear to me that she didn't want my parents interfering with my schooling. I didn't even know what my dad was discussing. By now, I was a little angry. I understand if they're under stress with my siblings, but accusing me of something they didn't even do? That's a completely different level. I'm sorry you feel that way, but Grandma paid for my college. I'm happy to catch up after the holidays, but I already have plans, I replied by text, trying to be as courteous as possible. That should have put an end to it, but it didn't. My dad went all drama mode and texted me about how I've left the family, how I'm abandoning them, and that he's done supporting me if I don't try. By now, all I could do was stare at my phone and wonder, what's going on? Abandon the family? They hardly noticed that I had been living alone for years. Now, all of a sudden, I'm the villain because I won't abandon everything and return in time for Christmas. I couldn't stop thinking about it, even though I wanted to dismiss it. My anger increased as I gave it more thought. It was somehow my duty to make things better the moment they needed something, even if they hadn't spoken to me in months and hadn't bothered to check in or ask how I was doing. I was meant to be their fallback option, or something. To vent, I called Clara and Mia. It sounded like my parents were just using me as a guilt trip, and that was what they both said. Mia claimed that rather than wanting to see me, they most likely wanted me back for Christmas so they wouldn't feel guilty about it. As usual, Clara didn't mince words and replied bluntly, "Screw them. You don't owe them anything." My phone buzzed as I was lying there, so I chose to sleep on it and wait for it to cool down before answering again. Once more, it was my father. I felt numb as I read the brief and icy email this time. If you don't come home, don't bother coming back at all. How did we arrive here? How did we go from months of not communicating to them essentially rejecting me because I wasn't attending Christmas? It didn't seem real at all. I spent a lot of time looking at the message. I wanted to retaliate by saying something unpleasant. For all the times they disregarded me and made me feel as like I didn't even belong in that house, I wanted to confront them. Rather, I remained silent. I laid over, put my phone down, and attempted to fall asleep. Before the holidays, I didn't want to be drawn into a major family dispute. The accusations, guilt trips, and whatever else they were going to throw at me were things I didn't want to deal with. I simply left it. I woke up the following day to more texts, this time from my mother. She said little more than that they were disappointed in me, didn't know why I was acting so aloof, and hoped I would reconsider. I couldn't help but chuckle because distant wasn't even close to describing it. They were only now realizing that I had been aloof throughout my life. Once more, I disregarded the texts and concentrated on preparing for the ski trip. I must admit that I was as excited as Mia and Clara were. It seemed like the ideal way to get away from all the family drama. I didn't think of my parents for the first time in a long time until we got on the road. I didn't feel depressed or guilty. I simply felt liberated. Naturally, though, peace couldn't last forever. I was about to get over it when my mother sent me another message, in the middle of the journey this time. She was not going to give up. They would have to start making decisions about the future without me, something I wouldn't enjoy, she warned, if I didn't return home soon. At that moment it became clear. There was more in store for them than Christmas. Perhaps it had to do with the house or one of my brothers. I had no idea why they were pushing so hard, but all of a sudden it became clear. They wanted me back for a more significant reason than simply having me around for the holidays. That insight was like a kick to the gut. I always assumed they were simply being needy or lonely. It was never about me, though. Not at all. What they could obtain from me was the main concern. I was finished. I assumed that everything would settle down after my parents' attempt to guilt trip me. I chose to ignore their texts, go on the ski trip, and concentrate on the fact that I was an independent person with my own goals in life. I refused to be dragged back into their world of expectations and guilt. Naturally, though, it wasn't that easy. After returning home and getting used to my routine, I got a message from Jake, my older brother. Jake and I hadn't spoken for months, so maybe not longer. I always imagined that Jake could have some understanding of me as a child. I reasoned that since he wasn't as ill as my other brothers, we may have had more. However, he was constantly too preoccupied with his own affairs. In any case, I was taken aback when I saw his name appear on my phone. His message was straightforward. "Hey, we need to talk." I wasn't feeling particularly dramatic about my family, but I wasn't sure what he wanted. I replied to the text. "Roughly what?" He gave me a call a short while later. I contemplated responding, but my curiosity overcame me. He jumped right into it as I picked up the phone, before I could even say hi. "Mom and Dad have discussed designating you as one of the boys' legal guardians when they are away." I nearly dropped the phone, I promise. For a few seconds, I just sat there in shock, my heart pounding. Was this a prank of some sort? Will they just throw this responsibility on me after all these years of hardly being involved in my life? I managed to ask, "What the hell are you talking about?" At last. Jake sighed like I was the one who was being irrational. "You know how things are with Mom and Dad. They've got a lot on their plate with the other boys, and they're not going to be around forever. They need to know someone's going to step up and take care of things when they're gone." I could feel the heat rising in my body. Jake didn't seem to get why I was outraged. And they think that someone is me? After everything? After all the ignoring and guilt tripping, they just assume I'm going to drop everything and take over their mess? Look, I know it's a lot, but you're the only one who's really stable. The rest of us, we've got our own issues. It nearly made me chuckle. Yeah, well, maybe you guys should have thought about that before now. I didn't even know this was a thing. They never told me they were going to talk to you about it, he stated, but I figured you should know before they tried to spring it on you. I was enraged. It was no longer simply about Thanksgiving or Christmas. This was larger. They hadn't even considered talking to me until now, when it was convenient for them, and they were planning something long-term. They wanted me to take over as the responsible party after we hadn't communicated for years? Simply put, no. Trying to make sense of it, I said, "So what? They've been discussing this behind my back? Like they just decided I'd take on the responsibility without even asking me?" "Yeah, pretty much," said Jake. "They've been planning for a while." Sitting quietly, I stared at the wall while I tried to take it all in. Although I knew it wasn't really Jake's fault, I still felt like screaming at him. He was only the messenger. However, that didn't alter the reality that my parents were going to give me the heaviest possible slap. They wanted me to spend the rest of my life cleaning up after them, not just doing them a favor. I was done being invisible, but I most definitely wasn't going to be their fallback option at this point. More than anything else, I felt defeated and wondered, so what am I supposed to do? Just drop my whole life and move back home? Give up everything I've worked for? Jake had no response to that. He made an effort to discuss how difficult it was for our parents to handle everything while taking care of my brothers. I didn't care though. Because I wasn't an issue, I had been ignored my entire life. Since I was the only one with my life together, they now wanted to take advantage of me. It was unfair. I interrupted him in the middle of his statement and stated, "I'm not doing it. I will not serve as their fallback. They haven't cared about me for the past 25 years, and they have no right to hold me accountable for everyone now." After a moment of silence, Jake remarked, "I understand, I do, but you're still a member of the family." I wanted to shout when I heard that term. Family. Yes, I was a member of the family, but only when it suited them and only when they were in need. They showed no concern for my well-being or need for assistance when I was a child. But all of a sudden, they needed me because they were afraid of what lay ahead. I said, "Tell them I'm not interested. And don't give me another call about this." Before Jake could answer, I hung up and sat there, attempting to relax while I stared at the phone. It seemed as though my entire existence had been building to this point, when I had finally had enough. Enough of being exploited after being ignored, enough of manipulative texts, enough of guilt trips. Their safety net wasn't going to be me. Jake and my dad didn't get in touch for a few days. They seemed to be waiting for me to change my mind, come to my senses, and become the excellent daughter they had suddenly determined I should be. However, I had no intention of moving. Since I was the only one left standing, I wasn't going to allow them to vent their troubles on me. A letter then arrived in the mail. My mother gave it to me. As if we were living in the 1800s or something, she had sent a letter without even calling. The lengthy, meandering letter was chock full of the same guilt-tripping nonsense I had heard before. She continued by describing how difficult things were for them, how much they needed me, and how they were unsure of what they would do without my assistance. But the last part was what truly annoyed me. "Olivia, we're not asking for much," my mother wrote. "All we need to know is that someone will take care of the family while we are away. That's when I understood the true significance of this. They showed no concern for me. All that mattered to them was that their mess be cleaned up after they left. Because they loved or missed me, they didn't want me back in their life. Since I was the only one who hadn't broken, they wanted me since I was practical. I tossed the letter in the trash after crumpling it up. I was finished. First update. I believed I had reached my breaking point after receiving that letter from my mother. What more was there for them to show me that I hadn't previously seen? I had already had enough of their manipulations, guilt trips, and attempts to hold me accountable for their disaster. Naturally, though, I was mistaken. It wasn't finished. Not even close. I received another call, this time from an unfamiliar number, a week or two after I threw away the letter. Something in me was intriguing, but I nearly didn't pick up. Given that I had been ignoring their number, it could have been Jake once more or one of my parents attempting a different one. In any case, I picked up. Hi Olivia, this is Sarah. One of my sisters is Sarah. We never had a close relationship. She had to deal with hospitals, therapists, and everything else on her own. Yes, I felt sorry for her as a child, but I didn't know her well. It felt unusual to hear from her now, after everything, since we were essentially strangers sharing a house. I said, hey, unsure of the direction things were taking. Look, she began, I know that things between you and your parents have been a little difficult, but I really need you to pay attention to what I have to say. Already, I could feel my stomach dropping. I thought, more guilt, more attempts to pull me back in. Here we go. What is it? I tried to seem neutral as I inquired, but I was already preparing myself for whatever nonsense was about to happen. They're not doing well, she stated after taking a long breath. I mean, not doing well at all. The fact that no one is stepping forward to help with the boys is making them panic as Dad's health rapidly deteriorates. Olivia, they are afraid. They are unsure on what to do. I remained silent for a while. I did care. It wasn't that I didn't. I didn't want my parents or anyone else to suffer. However, I couldn't just go in and make things right for them after everything, after years of them not caring about me. Their band-aid was not me. With caution, I added, I'm sorry to hear that, but I can't just drop everything. I too have a life, Sarah. I could tell she was frustrated by the way she sighed. I understand that, but the only one who can assist is you. You know what's happening with me and the others, and Jake is barely able to hold himself together. Olivia, there isn't anyone else? I retorted, feeling my rage rising once more. Desperate because they ignored this for years. They believed that everything would simply go away, so they allowed stuff to accumulate. And now I'm responsible because I'm the one who got out and made a living for myself? Sarah, that is unfair. She said, I know it's unfair, but this is where we are. They require assistance. There it was once more, the same old shame, the same old story. They always managed to pull me back, regardless of what I did or how far I tried to get away from it. I could sense the tension rising within me, the animosity and frustration that had been building for years now reaching a head. I spoke more sharply than I meant to when I said, I'm not doing it. It is not my intention to tidy up their mess. They didn't give a damn about me when I was a child, and they certainly don't get to visit me now only for the sake of convenience. I have a life of my own. They must solve this problem on their own. When Sarah spoke once more, I could hear the pain in her voice. I understand, Olivia. I do. However, this isn't about me or you. Her words. It's about the family. It's about what's going to happen to the boys when they're gone. If we don't step up, who will? That struck me hard because it made me understand how imprisoned we all were, not because I felt suddenly guilty. After neglecting and ignoring me for years, my parents were suddenly attempting to exploit me as a means of escape. What about my siblings? Like me, they were ensnared in the center of everything. They simply lacked the strength to defend themselves. I repeated, I'm sorry, but this time I was softer. But I can't. I won't. She paused for a long time, and I could hear her displeasure over the phone. But this time, I wasn't going to give in. I was unable to. At last, she answered, okay, in a flat voice. Before I could finish, she hung up, saying, I'll tell them. For a while, I just sat there and stared at my phone, feeling guilty and relieved at the same time. I was aware that I owed my parents nothing. It still stung though. Knowing that I had no control over my family's disintegration pained. Or perhaps I wasn't helpless. I was simply unwilling to give up my own interests for them anymore. My mother sent me another letter a few days later. It was considerably worse this time. She skipped the small talk and went right to the guilt trip. She expressed her disappointment at me in her letter, saying that I was failing the family and that she couldn't believe I would abandon them when they needed me most. She rambled on about how difficult it was for her and my dad, how much they had given up for us, and how she didn't know what she had done to earn such a self-centered kid. It was cruel. And it worked for a moment. I had the same old, well-known sting of guilt that I had experienced throughout my entire childhood. However, I then recalled all the years I had been invisible, the times they had forgotten about me, and the times I had needed them but they had failed to show up. I understood that they weren't in need of assistance. Control was at issue here. In order to make me feel as though I owed them something, they attempted to entice me back into their web. However, I no longer owed them anything. Like the last letter, I ripped it up and threw it in the garbage. I was finished. I had had enough of being their pawn. I had had enough of being manipulated by them. Now that I had my own life, I wasn't going to let them take it away. I banned their numbers the following day. To be safe, I also blocked Jake. Although it wasn't a simple choice, it was the only one that seemed correct. They couldn't continue to bring me down and make me feel like I was to blame for their issues. They had to live with the decisions they had made. I felt free for the first time in a long time. Second update. It was a relief to block their numbers, as if a burdensome burden had been removed. I was in charge of the issue for the first time. I wasn't sitting there anticipating a surprise call from Jake or another guilt-tripping message from my mom. It was calm and quiet. Naturally, though, that didn't last. A knock on my door occurred a few weeks later. I assumed it might be a delivery, but I wasn't expecting anyone. My mother, standing on my porch as if she had every right to be there, was there when I opened the door. How she found me is a mystery to me. Although I hadn't been hiding, I didn't anticipate her showing up at my house. She appeared older, I suppose, or perhaps it was simply the tension. In any case, it was evident to me that she had not had an easy time. I didn't feel sorry for her though, no more. "Why are you in this place?" I asked, trying to sound as composed as possible. She took a while to respond. She simply remained there, staring at me as though she hadn't seen me before. At last she said something. "Olivia, we need to talk." I let out a sigh. "No, we don't at all. Everything I needed to say has been spoken. I've already decided." She took a step forward as if she were about to enter, but I blocked her path by standing in the doorway. I didn't want to give in to her and allow this to become just another guilt trip. She said in a gentler voice, "Please, just listen. Your dad is becoming worse. We don't know how long he has left, and he keeps going in and out of the hospital. Olivia, I'm at a loss for what to do." The card she had been waiting to play was finally there. The card that says, "Your father is dying." Although she didn't state it directly, I could tell she was implying it. I'm not cold-hearted. I didn't want my father to be in pain. However, I couldn't just abandon everything and run to their side after everything they had done to me. "I'm sorry," I murmured, attempting to sound calm. "But this isn't my problem. You and Dad have had years to figure this out. You can't just show up now and expect me to fix everything." She gave me the impression that I had slapped her. "I'm not asking you to fix anything, I just need you to be there for the family." "For the family?" I said again, nearly giggling. "What family? The one that ignored me for 25 years? The one that only talks to me when they need something? That's not a family, Mom. That's just manipulation." Her eyes grew wide, and I briefly believed she was going to disagree with me. Instead, she simply broke down in tears, right outside my door. I had no idea what to do when she started crying. I couldn't stand by and watch her cry, but I also couldn't invite her inside. "Look," I continued, now speaking more softly. "I get that this is hard for you. I really do. But I'm not your backup plan. I'm not the person who's going to come in and make everything okay. You made your choices, and now you have to deal with them." She looked up at me after wiping her eyes. I could see the despair beginning to give way to rage. "We did the best we could, Olivia. You don't understand what it was like, raising all of you, dealing with everything. We didn't have time for you because we were trying to keep everyone else alive." The excuse was there. I had heard the same justification countless times before. I stated, "And that's not my fault," in a firmer tone. "You made the choice to have 5 kids. You made the choice to focus on everyone else and leave me behind. That was your decision, not mine. And now you're trying to make me feel guilty for it. I won't do it, Mom. I won't." She stared at me for a long time without saying anything, as if she had forgotten who I was. Perhaps she didn't. Perhaps because I wasn't causing any issue, she still thought of me as the tiny child she could ignore. However, I was no longer that child. I had had enough of being invisible. At last she said something. So that's it? You're just going to turn your back on us? I gave a headshake. Number, you turned your back on me a long time ago. I'm just finally walking away. Regarding that, she had nothing to say. She simply turned and left, making her way back to her vehicle. I experienced a peculiar spectrum of feelings as I watched her leave. There was a sad part of me, to be sure, but the majority of me felt liberated, as if I had finally let go of something I had been holding onto for years, something I should have done years ago. I went back inside after she left and sat down to attempt to take in what had just transpired. I had lost my anger. I wasn't even injured. I had just finished. I'm over the manipulation, the guilt, and the never-ending sense that I'm not good enough. They weren't going to rely on me. I wasn't going to be the last thing they tried. I wasn't going to let them bring me down any longer. I had my own life to live. It was quiet for the following few weeks. I received no correspondence, no calls, and nothing else. To be honest, I hadn't felt this good in a long time. I concentrated on my life, my friends, and my job. I wasn't watching over my shoulder to see when they would send me another message. I had moved past the shadow of their expectations. Then, perhaps a month later, I received an email from Jake, not my parents. It was brief, just a few sentences, but it conveyed all the information I required. Dad died last night. I believed you ought to be aware. I looked at the email for a while, unsure of how to react. I knew this would happen, so I wasn't shocked. However, I also didn't feel depressed. To be honest, I didn't feel anything. I considered answering. I considered giving Jake a call to see how he was doing and perhaps to give my sympathy. I later understood, however, that this was really a new phase in the same cycle, another opportunity for them to re-engage me. And this time, I wasn't going to be duped. Without responding, I dismissed the email and carried on with my day. I had finally come to terms with the fact that I was no longer a part of their universe.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.
My husband demanded a DNA test to deny that the baby was his. He was having an affair and planning to take control of my father-in-law's company. The words that just came out of my husband's mouth are far worse than the pain that rips through me like a sharp blade. Adam comes forward, his pricey suit immaculately ironed despite the 12 hours we've spent in this delivery room, while I'm still gasping for air, trembling and drenched in sweat. I want a DNA test. He doesn't question our baby daughter's paternity. His voice is dispassionate and flat, as if he's ordering coffee. With her hands still holding our baby, my baby, the nurse freezes. The beeping monitors suddenly become too loud and obtrusive, and the room appears to shrink. Dr. Collins's wrinkled face wrinkles in worry as he looks up from his charts. Adam, what are you talking about? My voice has an odd, aloof quality, as if it were someone else's. He refuses to look at me. Rather, he looks coldly and calculatingly at our daughter, who weighs 7 pounds, 4 ounces of perfection. You heard me, McKenna. I want proof she's mine. Like poison gas, the accusation lingers in the air. This is the result of 12 years of marriage. To make him feel even a small portion of the agony pulsing through my chest, I want to shout and throw something. Rather, I chuckle. It's a harsh, bitter, terrible sound. Get out. In my mouth, the words taste like metal. Get out before I call security. Dr. Collins begins. Mrs. Harrison. But Adam interrupts. I have every right to be here, and every right to request this test. His fingers skim the screen as he takes out his phone. My lawyer says. Your lawyer? You've been talking to your lawyer while I was in labor, I blurt out. The only indication that he is still capable of feeling guilt is a faint flush that appears on his neck. I've been preparing for this moment for weeks. Weeks. The term keeps repeating in my mind. My husband was organizing this ambush as I was folding little onesies and choosing nursery colors. I feel as though I've been physically struck by the understanding. Bless the nurse, she puts herself in our way. Sir, perhaps we should continue this discussion outside. No. I ignore my aching body's protest and push myself to sit up straighter. Let him stay. Let him watch the test. Let him see exactly how wrong he is. Something flickers in Adam's eyes, but his expression remains unchanged. Disappointment? Solace? I'm no longer able to tell. I used to be familiar with all telltale signs and micro-expressions. At what point did my husband lose his identity? Dr. Collins adds, I'll arrange it immediately. In a deliberately bland tone. Though I must say, in my 30 years of practice, just do it, instructs Adam. I used to find his nervous habit of straightening his tie charming. The sooner we know the truth, the better. The truth, as though he still knows what that word implies. My girl, our daughter, is sleeping soundly in the bassinet, oblivious to the storm that is building all around her. Her dark hair, like mine, is already beginning to curl, and her little fingers are balled into fists. Even though my hands are shaking, I answer. Fine, in a calm voice. Do the test. But when it proves what I already know, don't expect forgiveness. It buzzes on Adam's phone. When he looks at it, his mask briefly comes off, guilt, terror. He's on his way to the door before I can comprehend it. He says, I'll be back tomorrow, without turning around. My lawyer will contact you about the arrangements. After he leaves, the door clicks shut, and I can breathe again. Dr. Collins touches my shoulder tenderly. McKenna, I'm so sorry. Don't. My fingers already discover Sam's number as I grab for my phone. I'll let my cousin know what to do. He always does. Just get me the paperwork for the test. And, Dr. Collins, make sure it's witnessed at every step. His eyes light up with comprehension as he nods. Of course. I gaze at my daughter once more, committing to memory every exquisite feature of her face. One thing is certain, regardless of the game Adam is playing or the falsehoods he is telling himself. He doesn't know what he's begun. After 3 days in the hospital, Sam feels as though his flat is a haven. As Tara bustles around the kitchen brewing tea, I curl up with Emma on his worn leather couch. My worries are calmed by the familiar smell of coffee grounds and old books, but my hands continue to shake. Saying, he's changed all the locks, I observe Sam pacing. Changed the security codes too. 12 years of marriage, and he locks me out like I'm some kind of criminal. With his journalist's notebook already stuffed with scrawled notes, Sam stops pacing. When exactly did things start changing with Adam? Think back carefully. The inquiry is a kind of gut strike. I close my eyes and attempt to remember when my marriage started to go apart. When I say, maybe 4 months ago. He started working late, missing doctor's appointments. Said it was a big merger, the Preston Tech deal. Tara's expression is disturbed as she puts down a mug of chamomile tea. That closed months ago. I gave it a quick glance. How do you know that? Because my sister works in their PR department. Tara and Sam exchange glances. The deal fell through in March. March. When Adam began bringing pricey new suits home. When the enigmatic business travels started. When he completely stopped caressing me. Sam taps his pen against the notebook and says, this is what doesn't add up. Why wait until the baby is born to demand a DNA test? Why not do it during pregnancy? Because he needed a scene, states Tara in a low voice. He needed witnesses. It dawns on me like a blast of cold water. He's assembling evidence against me. Emma stirs in my arms, and I instinctively move her blanket. Her little face reminds me of how calm and trustworthy I used to be. Sam says, there's something else. But he hesitates. I made some calls. Adam's been meeting with divorce attorneys since January. When I initially informed him of my pregnancy. He remarked that everything was fine as he grinned and gave me a hug. That son of a... I stopped myself and glanced down at Emma. Why go through with the pregnancy if he was planning this all along? Because of the Harrison family trust, Tara responds accordingly. Your father-in-law's will had specific conditions about heirs, didn't it? Things begin to come together. The trust only pays out if there are legitimate children. Even I can hear the hollowness in my voice. He needed proof the baby wasn't his to invalidate the claim. Sam hears a buzzing sound on his phone. His face darkens as he looks at it. Adam just posted on LinkedIn. He's accepted a new position at Grant Technologies. Grant? Something in my memory is triggered by the name. Wait, isn't that the company that tried to buy out Harrison Industries last year? Sam concludes. The same one your father-in-law refused to sell to before he died. We all jump when someone knocks on the door. Glancing through the peephole, Tara takes a rapid step back. It's Adam. I say. Don't open it. And squeeze Emma tighter. Adam's words, McKenna, echo through the door. I know you're in there. The DNA test is scheduled for tomorrow morning. My lawyer insists you be present. I take Sam's arm as he approaches the door. Wait, let him talk. Adam goes on. You're making this harder than it needs to be. His voice becoming almost soft. Just come home. We can work this out. I slowly get to my feet so as not to wake Emma. Work what out, Adam? The lies? The secret meetings? Or how about the trust fund you're trying to steal? Quiet. Next. I don't know what you think you know. I know enough. I no longer tremble when I speak. I know about Grant Technologies. I know about the divorce lawyers, and soon, I'll know everything else too. One more pause. The veneer of tenderness vanishes when he talks again. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Neither do you. My heart hardens as I gaze down at our kid, my girl. Game on, Adam. He backtracks along the corridor. After locking the door, Sam looks at me. What's the plan? I take my phone out and go through my old contacts until I locate the one I need. First, we find out everything we can about Grant Technologies. And then, I hit the dial. We call in some favors. Before a recognizable voice responds, the phone rings again. Dr. Collins, I need your help with something. With a somber expression, Dr. Collins slips the phone across his desk. These messages were automatically backed up to the cloud account you shared. I thought you should see them. When I take up the smartphone, my hands shake. 3:47 a.m. is the timestamp displayed. I went into labor 2 days prior. The message says, everything's arranged. Once the test results come back, she won't have any claim to the trust. Make sure you stick to the plan. Adam has responded. She suspects nothing. Just keep your father focused on the merger. Evelyn Grant, says Dr. Collins in a low voice. Daughter of Marcus Grant. I find the name to be bitter. Last year, he attempted to compel my father-in-law to sell his business. With his journalistic instincts taking over, Sam leans forward. The same Marcus Grant who mysteriously acquired 3 board seats after your father-in-law's death. I continue to scan through texts, each one getting worse. Plans, meetings, and personal information that makes me queasy. Since January, when I informed him about the pregnancy, they have been dating. When Sam says, the timing's not coincidental, Grant Technologies announced their hostile takeover bid last week. With Adam's help, they'll have controlling interest in Harrison Industries unless there's a legitimate heir. The parts fit together perfectly. That's why he needs the DNA test, to show Emma isn't his. It's not about the baby at all, it's about the company. We are interrupted by a knock. Tara enters with a pallid face. Adam's here, with lawyers. Even though my heart is racing, I make myself remain composed. Let them in. Adam walks in with 2 suits that probably cost more than my yearly income, as if he owns the place. He's wearing a tie I've never seen before, and he appears colder and sharper. Dr. Collins begins. This is a private medical facility, but Adam interrupts. We're conducting a paternity test that my client has every right to oversee. The senior attorney takes the stand. We have concerns about potential tampering. I chuckle. I'm unable to stop it. Tampering? That's rich, coming from you. Adam's mouth clenches. Careful, McKenna, you're already facing potential fraud charges. I hold out the phone and ask, if what? If these messages somehow become public? The ones showing you and Evelyn planning to steal your father's company? He becomes motionless. I catch a glimpse of genuine terror in his eyes. You had access to your private messages? On our shared cloud account? I get to my feet, my rage giving me courage. The one you forgot to disconnect when you were so busy planning your little corporate takeover? Something is whispered in Adam's ear by the younger attorney. His expression gets gloomy. He responds. This changes nothing. But his tone falters. The test will proceed exactly as planned. Dr. Collins cuts in. Under my supervision. With witnesses present, unless you'd prefer to explain to the board why you're colluding with Grant Technologies while serving as Harrison Industries CFO. Sam moves forward while Adam's hand fumbles with his phone. I wouldn't. My article about corporate espionage at Grant Technologies goes live in an hour. Fascinating stuff about insider trading and family betrayal. Adam responds, you're bluffing, yet his forehead is dripping with perspiration. I approach while speaking quietly. You want a war, Adam? Fine. But remember, you taught me everything about corporate finance during those late-night strategy sessions. Everything. McKenna? And I learned something else from you too. I show him his most recent communication to Evelyn, which has to do with love and the words, forever always. Keep receipts. The attorneys look at each other. His throat is cleared by the elder. Perhaps we should discuss terms. No terms, I respond, observing Adam's flawless exterior crumble. No deals. You wanted to play dirty? Let's play. But remember, you're not just fighting for money anymore, you're fighting for survival. Adam's shoulders are stiff with rage as they depart. Sam lets out a faint whistle. That was just the beginning? I finish sitting back down as my legs threaten to give out. Doctor, how long till the test results, Collins? 24 hours, he adds, closely examining me. Are you certain of this? After we begin? I'm sure. I glance at the picture of him and my father-in-law at the medical school graduation that is on his desk. He made the incorrect decisions. I'm not going to make the same error. Squeezing my shoulder, Sam asks, "What comes next?" I take out my personal phone and navigate to a number I never would have imagined using. We then speak with Evelyn Grant. She has to find out what sort of man she's actually interacting with. I feel small as I adjust Emma's carrier on my arm, trying to see my reflection in the polished marble of the Grant Technologies lobby, which gleams with wealth and power, all steel and glass reaching toward the sky. I'm wearing one of Adam's favorite suits, the one he bought me for board meetings, and it fits differently now, but the armor is what counts. The receptionist says, "Miss Grant is in a meeting," without even looking up. "Tell her McKenna Harrison is here," I add, keeping my voice calm, "with her fiancé's baby." Her head shoots up, eyes widening as she takes in Emma's dark hair, which are much like Adam's, and the clicking of keys stops. After 5 minutes, I find myself seated across from Evelyn Grant in her corner office. She is younger than I thought she would be, and her engagement ring, which is 3 carats and princess cut, is perfectly polished, resembling the one in Adam's browser history. But her hands betray her, squeezing a pen until her knuckles turn white. "I don't understand," she says. "Adam never mentioned a wife. A baby." Emma fusses, but I handle it with practiced ease. Funny how those details slip his mind when he's planning corporate takeovers. Color fades from her face. "You can't prove," she says. With screenshots visible, I move my phone across her desk. "I can, in fact. When your father finds out that his ideal future son-in-law is still married, what will he say? That he's manipulating Harrison Industries stock by utilizing your relationship." She says, "You're lying," but she's already reading, swiping through messages with her immaculately manicured finger. I go on, observing her expression. "The DNA test is tomorrow." Adam seems pretty certain about the results, almost as if he knows something I don't. She looks up abruptly, and her eyes flicker with dread and recognition. Sam's text makes my blood run cold, and my phone buzzes. The lab was broken into yesterday night. Security footage was deleted. Evelyn murmurs, "He wouldn't," more to herself than to me. "Your father's company stands to gain millions if Harrison Industries falls," I declare, leaning forward. "And Adam stands to gain everything, unless there's a legitimate heir." When the pen she is holding breaks, ink spills down her immaculate desk calendar, discoloring both merger dates and wedding venue appointments. "Get out," she says tremblingly, "before I call security." I slowly stand up, drawing Emma next to me. "What's funny, do you know? 5 years ago, he purchased the same ring for me. Promised me the same thing indefinitely. Utilized the same pet names as well." I said, "Get out." I whisper, "Check his phone. The one he keeps in his gym locker. The one that conveys genuine messages." She becomes motionless. "How did you?" "Because I used to be you. Young, in love, and sure that he was unique." I make my way to the door, then stop. "Oh, and Evelyn, pay attention to his left eyebrow when you confront him. When he lies, it quivers." On her broken face, the elevator doors close. "It's done," I text Sam, my hands shaking. "Begin the second phase?" He responds right away. Tara's lab contact verified attempts at manipulation. The test is being moved to a secure location by Dr. Collins. My heart stops when I open another message that appears from an unknown number. Adam writes, "Clever girl, but you can't remember who taught you how to play chess. Check your email from Harrison Industries. The creative accounting remedies you assisted me with last year are going public, or you have an hour to leave the board. It's your turn." My stomach churns as I realize how long Adam has been plotting this. I stare at the screen, remembering late evenings spent poring over spreadsheets, following his advice, and signing agreements he swore were regular. I see my father-in-law's fortitude, my own resolve, and something else, something Adam never understood about the Harrison legacy, in Emma's face as she stirs, her little fingers capturing my finger. I call Dr. Collins. "How soon will you get access to last year's original audit files?" "Already done," he responds. "And McKenna, I discovered something intriguing in your father-in-law's personal documents. It has to do with a backup plan." I'm grinning for the first time in days. "Tell me everything." The game is only getting started. With its clean whiteness and security cameras monitoring our every step, the safe lab feels like a fortress. Dr. Collins stands at the testing station, his face impassive while Adam's lawyers hover close, and Emma sleeps in her carrier, unaware of the tension that permeates the space. Dr. Collins says, "All parties will remain present, and the results will be available in 30 minutes. With mascara smearing her cheeks and her flawless poise ruined, Evelyn storms in as the door flings open. "You're a jerk." Adam takes a step back, his self-assured facade falling off. "Evelyn, this isn't the locker at the gym." She throws her phone in his direction. It strikes the wall with a crash. "You're still married despite having 3 other ladies." The lawyers look at one another in panic, and one of them grabs for his briefcase, but Sam stops him. "Until we hear those results," he continues softly, "nobody leaves." I had forgotten Adam's uneasy gesture until he straightened his tie. "This is absurd." "Whatever you heard from McKenna." "She didn't have to tell me anything," Evelyn murmurs. "Your friend Marcus was quite helpful once I showed him the real numbers behind the Grant Technology merger." Adam's face loses color. "You didn't." "Daddy's on his way," she replies, her smile harsh and cruel. "With the SEC. A message from Tara says, security footage recovered, lab break-in suspect identified." My phone vibrates. I slide the phone to Dr. Collins, who stares at Adam's younger lawyer and begins to perspire after examining the picture. Dr. Collins remarks, "Interesting?" "Very interesting indeed." I can see Adam's eyes flit between us, calculating that expression he gets when he's about to give up a piece to keep his game alive. "The accounting discrepancies," he continues abruptly. "All of which McKenna approved. She bears equal responsibility." With the exception of the backup plan, I interrupt, observing his expression. "The one my father-in-law left with Dr. Collins prior to his passing." Adam becomes motionless. "What?" "Adam, he was aware. Concerning the embezzlement. Concerning Grant Technologies. Including your attempts to access Emma's trust fund before she was even born," I reply steadily. "He documented everything." The senior attorney clears his throat, saying, "Mr. Harrison, maybe we ought to stop talking." Adam utterly loses his cool and turns to face me, his fists clenched. "You're playing a bluff. Richard never did. Your father trusted me," whispers Dr. Collins quietly. "Not just as his doctor, but as executor of his estate, including the real will." The device emits a beep. "Test results ready?" Sam stops Adam before he can get the printout. "It's over," Sam declares. "The SEC has everything, the fake DNA test orders, the embezzlement records, even your deals with Marcus." Adam backs away from the door when he hears heavy, deliberate footsteps echoing in the hallway. "McKenna," he attempts, his tone lessening to that well-known deceptive one. "We can still make this right. For Emma's benefit." "Don't you dare use our daughter as a bargaining chip," I shout, my words blazing like venom. The door opens, and Marcus Grant comes in first, followed by 2 SEC agents, while Tara records everything with her phone. One agent says, "Adam Harrison, you are being investigated for securities fraud." The events that follow are shown in slow motion. Sam yells something about betrayal, Adam rushes toward the emergency exit, the younger lawyer blocks him, and Emma sleeps soundly through it all, oblivious to the fact that her world is turning on its axis. Dr. Collins holds out the test findings while touching my arm. "Are you curious?" I look at the paper and go back to all the times I questioned whether Adam was telling the truth or if I had failed as a mother or a wife. As I watch the SEC agents handcuff my spouse, I finally respond, "No, because the outcomes are no longer important. She is my daughter. I only need to know that." Marcus Grant walks toward his tomb. "Mrs. Harrison, your testimony is required tomorrow." I interrupted, drawing Emma next to me. "I'm taking my daughter home right now," and as we go, I hear Adam yelling my name, desperate now, realizing what he's lost, and I don't turn back. Some games aren't worth winning, and some victories come from walking away rather than seeking revenge. I have all I need in my arms tonight, but tomorrow will come attorneys, testimony, and struggles for control of Harrison Industries. Perhaps it's because half of the board resigned when the SEC probe went public, or perhaps it's because Dr. Collins is constantly looking at his watch or Sam avoids eye contact, but the Harrison Industries boardroom is colder than I remember. Spreading papers across the gleaming table, Marcus Grant declares, "The evidence is conclusive. The DNA test results were altered before they reached the lab. However, my client maintains that Mrs. Harrison was complicit in the financial irregularities." Adam's new attorney interrupts. I say, "The signatures on these documents were forged, but even I sound insincere." "I never?" "Can you demonstrate it?" "Because these trading records show otherwise," the attorney says, advancing further documents. "During the relevant period, there were significant transfers to your personal account. Adam requested that I cease keeping an eye on our joint account because he had it handled, and my hands shake when I recognize the account numbers." Sam rises up suddenly and says, "This is absurd. When McKenna approved these transactions, she was on maternity leave? The timestamps say otherwise. The lawyer's smirk is shark-like. The contingency plan has been compromised. Marcus Grant begins, his words tumbling like stones, while Dr. Collins clears his throat. Last night, someone gained access to Richard Harrison's secret files. Everything is gone. The room whirls, and I hold onto the edge of the table as the floor moves beneath me. That isn't feasible. The security procedures, the lawyer explains, almost empathetically, were bypassed using your credentials along with some very interesting emails about offshore accounts. My phone is buzzing, and Tara is sending me urgent updates. Speculation about the DNA test issue is growing on social media. News sites are reporting on fraud at all levels of Harrison Industries, and the business stock is plunging. I can explain, but Adam's attorney raises his hand. Save it for the SEC hearing. In the meantime, the board has called for an emergency vote of no confidence, given the circumstances, he says, standing up and arranging his papers. You can't, I cry, my throat clenched. My father-in-law dedicated his life to this business. He had faith in me. I recoil when I hear Adam's voice. He stands in the doorway, spotless even with his ankle monitor for home imprisonment. As if I trusted you not to tell Evelyn behind my back. Don't you dare. The board needs stability, he adds calmly. Someone with clean hands to bring it through this storm. Thankfully, I have a deal with the SEC that calls for complete cooperation in return for a lighter sentence. The falsified signatures, the corrupted data, and the meticulously crafted paper trail that leads directly to me all fit together. The understanding tastes like ash as I reply, you're going to pin everything on me. The fraud, the cover-up, all of it. I told Evelyn that. He twitches his left eyebrow. McKenna, you caused this to yourself. If you had only cooperated? Did you play along? I get up so fast that my chair falls over. You stole my daughter's inheritance, right? Richard built everything, but you ruined it all. Your daughter? His grin turns ruthless. Roughly. The results of the initial DNA test were really intriguing. The audience falls silent, and as Sam approaches Adam, security personnel intervene. I murmur. You're lying. But skepticism seeps in like poison. I think about all those late hours at work, the enigmatic business trips, and how he never wanted to talk about nursery colors or baby names. Am I? He takes out his phone and displays a lab result that I had never seen before. Do you want to know how these genetic markers work? Adam's attorney interrupts Dr. Collins before he can finish speaking. In light of the situation, my client is ready to request complete custody. When evaluating a person's suitability for parenthood, the court typically disapproves of fraud and embezzlement. I hear Emma's midnight sobs and morning laughter, see her face with her small fingers and dark curls, and feel the weight of her in my arms. The only thing that has seemed genuine since this nightmare started. The board votes in an hour. Adam replies quietly. So step down immediately. Give us your shares, and we might be able to set up supervised visits. I sway and Sam takes my arm. McKenna, don't. My vision is blurring though, and I'm already reaching for the resignation letter. Sometimes surrendering isn't about giving up. Sometimes it's about buying time to fight in a different way. Sam stands guard at the door while Tara works her magic on the computer, and Dr. Collins's office feels strange at midnight, with shadows creeping across his father's medical degrees and the steady hum of backup generators masking our footsteps. Found it, she murmurs. The original backup of the server. During the purge, Adam's crew didn't notice it. When I put in the flash drive Richard Harrison gave me years ago, his insurance policy, which I never imagined I'd need, my hands trembled. How much time? Tara's fingers dart across the keyboard as she says, if your father-in-law's passwords still work, it will take 10 minutes to decrypt. Adam stands with 2 security guards on either side of him, his ankle monitor glowing accusingly in the dark as the door slams wide. I knew you'd try something desperate. He straightens his handcuffs and enters. How about breaking and entering? That will appear awful during the custody hearing. Sam shifts between us. How did you discover? Adam's eyes do not meet his smile. Dr. Collins isn't as devoted as you believed. Everybody has a cost. Like the cost of Evelyn? Or was she just another stepping stone? The words have a harsh bite. For a moment, he loses his composure. You don't understand what's at stake. Tara whispers. 7 minutes, behind me. Adam narrows his gaze. It won't matter what you're attempting to recover. Tomorrow morning, the board will cast its vote. Your resignation has already been handled. As I watch the progress meter crawl, I remark. The funny thing about resignations is that they're not valid if they were signed under duress or if the person requesting them is engaging in fraud. He chuckles, but there's a hint of doubt. You can't prove anything. 5 minutes, replies Tara. Adam gives the guards a signal. Stop it. Now. Wait. I take a step forward and play my final card. The actual DNA is the outcome. Bring them to me. We've been through this. Either show me, or I'll send the SEC whatever we discover. Each and every email, each and every transaction, each time you meet with Marcus Grant. He twitches his left eyebrow. You're bluffing. 3 minutes, declares Tara. Sam stiffens, prepared to step in as the guards approach the computer. She's yours. Everyone is frozen in place by Adam's comments. The actual test, the DNA test. It demonstrates you own her. I needed leverage, so I changed the outcomes. I just sense clarity, even though the admission should be painful. In any case, you never desired her, did you? She was merely another resource to manage. 2 minutes. At last, Adam's facade breaks. You believe this has to do with a baby? Richard promised me authority and control when he appointed me CFO, and that's what this is all about. I whisper. He promised you a legacy, not a kingdom to steal. 1 minute. Adam jumps for the computer, but Sam stops him while Tara covers the screen. Amidst the confusion, a phone that I've never seen before falls out of Adam's pocket, and I quickly find the messages. Talks with Marcus Grant, plans to steal parts from Harrison Industries, and more, emails from Dr. Collins. With a triumphant "it's done," Tara declares, everything's decrypted. Adam becomes motionless. You don't want to open that file. However, I already am. The room is filled with the voice of Richard Harrison, who made a video confession only days before he died, naming people, outlining plans, and revealing one more surprise. Finally understanding, I tell Adam, Richard changed his will before he died. The company was never yours to steal. Emma was left in charge of his interest. Impossible, Adam, trembling, adds. She wasn't even born. I show him the will's date. Adam, he was aware. Almost everything, including the fraud, the affairs, and the agreements with Grant Technologies. You've been playing the exact game he anticipated the entire time. Adam's face twists in rage as he hears police sirens blaring in the background. You believe you've triumphed? The board, the proof, and your written confession are still with me. Sam whispers. Check your phone, the real one you just dropped. With the SEC reopening their investigation, Marcus Grant making agreements to save himself, Evelyn's father withdrawing all support, and Dr. Collins sending one more message, Adam's eyes widen as the communications pour in. Richard, I fulfilled my pledge. The heritage of your granddaughter is secure. Some wins aren't about winning. They're about defending what counts most. As Adam collapses, his empire of lies crumbling around him, the cops storm in, but I'm already leaving, thinking of Emma sleeping soundly at home. There are still remnants of yesterday night's pandemonium in the Harrison Industries boardroom. Evidence markers litter the conference table where Adam's business finally fell apart, police tape crosses the entryway, and Dr. Collins offers me a leather portfolio. The private documents of Richard Harrison. When the time was right, he wanted you to have these, he says softly. Beneath years of financial documents and business plans, I discover a letter inside. The paper is old, the ink is fading, but Richard's firm handwriting is still legible. My beloved McKenna, you'll see why I choose you to guard Emma's estate by now. That legacy isn't measured in stock prices or merger deals, not because you're Adam's wife, but because you saw what he couldn't. It is ingrained in decision-making moments, in choosing to defend instead of destroy. Emma fusses about her job. I shift her blanket, see my image in the darker windows, and I appear different in some way. Stronger, perhaps, or simply more confident. Sam shows up at the door. The SEC wants to review the video testimony again, and Evelyn Grant is here. When Evelyn walks in, I anticipate fury, but all I see in her eyes is tiredness. She says, Daddy is resigning. The board approved the dissolution of the merger attempt. She twists her now ringless fingers and rambles. The scandal. I told her, I never wanted this, and for the most part, it's true. Neither did I. Something softens in Emma's face as she looks at her. He also promised me children, you know? A future in which I genuinely had faith. I know, I responded. Because I did too, once. The doctor clears his throat. The new members of the board are ready. They will require guidance about the company's future. Richard's letter, decisions, and legacies come to mind. Inform them that we are reorganizing, beginning with the charitable foundation. Funding for programs that assist single parents should be doubled. From where she sits at the computer, already working on the press release, Tara smiles. We hear a commotion outside, and through the glass walls I see Adam being escorted out by federal officials, his flawless suit creased, his confidence mask finally shattered. He looks at me and begins to talk, but I turn away because some discussions aren't worth having. There's something else, Dr. Collins says, holding out another envelope. Precise instructions regarding Emma's trust were left by your father-in-law. Money isn't the only factor. The grant is a challenge. Projects for community investment must equal every dollar. Finally comprehending, I chuckle. He ensured that the legacy would not be taken, it must be earned. Speaking of earning, Sam adds, the investigative piece just went live. The cost of truth and corporate corruption. However, in my opinion, karma in the boardroom sounded more fitting. As Emma falls asleep, I make the decision, no more karma, and no more retaliation either. Simply move forward. Dr. Collins' eyebrow goes up. What about Adam? We face justice through proper channels. Richard's portfolio is closed by me. I'm done playing his games. Evelyn gets up to go, but stops at the door. In my opinion, Richard made a wise decision. She nods to Emma, saying, not just for the company, but for her. When she leaves, I proceed to Richard's former office, where his nameplate still hangs on the door. It will soon read Harrison Industries Trust Management, and his presence permeates every thoughtfully chosen element. I discover a final message, dated the day of his death, tucked inside his desk calendar. Remember, knowing when to fight isn't what gives you power. Knowing when to stop is the key. I take Emma and inhale that lovely baby aroma as she wakes up, wanting attention with her father's determination but mercifully without any of his calculation. Are you prepared to return home? From the doorway, Sam asks. I corrected him, gathered our belongings, and said, not home. Forward. We bring lawyers, restructuring plans, and 1,000 decisions concerning Emma's future tomorrow, as reporters outside wait with questions about scandal and redemption. But now, in this silent triumph, I realize what Richard had known all along. Sometimes the best form of retaliation isn't demolishing what others have created, but rather creating something better out of the ashes they left behind.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.
Am I the asshole for cutting ties with my family after years of being overshadowed by my disabled sister's needs and feeling invisible? Emily, my younger sister, has always been the center of my family's existence. Even though she is a year younger than me, it has always seemed to me like she lives in a completely different universe that is solely centered on her. Because Emily was born with a physical disability and ongoing health problems, her life was filled with doctor's appointments, treatments, and special accommodations. Naturally, my parents devoted nearly all of their time and energy to making her life as easy and happy as possible, and I could see why. Nevertheless, it also meant that I was abandoned at a very young age. I took on the role of the easy and healthy kid, which came with the expectation that I needed less care and upkeep. I learned early on not to worry about it because Emily's needs always came first. I would nearly always stay behind when Emily couldn't, either at Aunt Linda's or with a neighbor, depending on Emily's ability to cope. They would frequently say, "We will bring you next time." But I never felt like it would happen. I didn't simply miss the big family holidays. Emily was almost always at the center of even the small everyday activities, like going to the park, buying ice cream, or watching a movie with the family. Sometimes I could comprehend it logically, but it still hurts emotionally. Her needs always came first, even though I would be excited about the idea of us all doing something together. I felt unnoticeable. The first time I truly felt the weight of being forgotten was on one of my birthdays. I must have been 8 or 9 years old by then. There was no cake, no celebration, and no acknowledgement of the day. I woke up that morning with the thought that maybe, just possibly, something unexpected was in store for me. However, as the day went on, it became very evident that my parents had completely forgotten my birthday. Their main goal was to get Emily to a concert that she had been anticipating for several months. They talked enthusiastically about the performance when they got home. As I listened, I questioned if they were even aware that it was supposed to be my special day. It wasn't until the next morning that my mother realized her error. Even while I appreciated the gift card she hurriedly grabbed as an afterthought, it was painfully obvious that the excitement of Emily's concert far outweighed my birthday in their universe. For many years, this pattern persisted. My parents were constantly focusing on Emily, and I was expected to accept that. Being understanding at all times, avoiding conflict, and blending in while everyone else's needs were taken care of was a heavy burden for a youngster. I felt more noticed and appreciated whether I was by myself or at friends' houses, so I started spending more time there. A year ago was my 10th birthday. For weeks, I had been hinting that I wanted to do something fun. Like go to the arcade or throw a pizza party. It was significant to me because I was finally getting close to double digits. As my birthday drew near, however, it became very evident that nothing was scheduled. I wanted them to surprise me, but I forced myself not to get excited. Maybe, just maybe, this year would be different. On the morning of my birthday, however, there was no celebration. There was no mention of it during breakfast, and the day went by like any other. Emily was the center of attention because she had been having a rough week with her health. Even though I knew she required more attention, I still felt disappointed. My school friends recalled, wished me a happy birthday, and even collected some money to buy me ice cream for lunch. It was a small thing, but it made the day seem less empty. I thought maybe my folks would remember when I got home that afternoon. However, the house was silent and my mother was on the phone setting up Emily's next therapy session. My father was still working. It should come as no surprise that no one acknowledged that today was supposed to be mine. Trying to make the most of it, I went to my room. What is the point of saying anything? It wouldn't make people remember, and it certainly wouldn't make them feel sorry. The following day my mother finally realized she had missed my birthday again. She apologized and explained how busy she had been with Emily. As usual, I nodded and claimed it was all right, but it wasn't. Even though I knew in my heart how things would work out, they assured me that we would make up for it that weekend. I desired to have faith in them. We stayed at home during the weekend though, because Emily wasn't feeling well enough to go out. Rather than celebrating or doing something special for Emily, we watched her favorite movies. As an afterthought, my dad brought home a store-bought cake, but by that point, it felt more like a consolation prize than a celebration. It served as yet another sobering reminder that in my home, Emily's needs and desires always came first. I had given up on having many dreams by the time I turned 12. I didn't focus on making any requests or offering any agenda suggestions. I spent the entire day playing video games, doing my homework, and helping out around the house. That year, my parents did remember to wish me a happy birthday, but there was a brief acknowledgement before everything was back to normal. That day, Emily went to see another doctor, and she was the center of attention again. That birthday hurt the most. Even though it wasn't particularly awful, not because of anything noteworthy, but rather because of how typical everything was. Habitual neglect as opposed to malicious neglect. My needs barely registered since my parents were so accustomed to giving Emily all of their attention. They neglected not just my birthdays but also my accomplishments in school, my hobbies, and the things I held dear. The acknowledgement was swiftly followed by dismissal. Resignation hardened by the disappointment. I stopped expecting something different as I grew older and realized that this was just the way things were. Celebrations of friends' birthdays began to act as a reminder of what might occur. At home, however, the story was consistently the same. As the years went by, I became accustomed to my invisibility. My parents constantly seemed to be somewhere else, so I learned to have modest expectations. It wasn't like they didn't care about me in their own way. Even though Emily's requests were always more urgent, more immediate, and somehow more important, I started to emotionally distance myself, not out of anger, but out of self-preservation. It was easier to be satisfied with coming in second, third, or not at all, and it was easier to not expect anything. During all of this, my grandparents were my lifeline. They were the ones that noticed the small details about me and gave me a sense of importance. Every time I went to their house, I had the impression that I had entered a different realm where I could see myself. Making everything unique was something my grandmother was particularly skilled at. Each time I went to see her, she let me pick out something to bake. No matter what we made, cookies, cupcakes, or even simple spaghetti, she had an old recipe book that was worn and battered. Her kitchen was our thing. My childhood was filled with joy on such afternoons. She made sure I understood that I was more than just another kid, I was her grandson. Grandpa, however, was the reserved type. Although he didn't say much, he was trustworthy and always present. He loved model trains. His basement was crammed with tracks, little houses and miniature scenery. I loved how he included me in something he enjoyed, not because I was a rail enthusiast. It was the only area where I didn't feel like an afterthought, and I spent hours down there with him. My grandparents complimented me on every small achievement I made that my parents didn't notice. After I scored my first soccer goal, Grandma prepared a special dinner and baked a cake. Grandpa even put the ball I used in the game in a small display in the living room. They made it feel like a huge deal in their place. Even though it was just a local soccer match, it was important to them because it was important to me. However, such pleasant things are always taken away by life. It was 3 years ago that Grandma fell unwell. It was a long fall, reflecting the slow erosion of my childhood happiness. It wasn't abrupt. She continued to attempt baking with me at first, but as her condition worsened, our sessions shifted to my sitting next to her bed and holding her hand as she slept. Long before she was gone, I missed her. Her death truly broke my heart. It felt like losing everything when I lost the one person who gave me a sense of belonging. The funeral went very quickly. There were many faces expressing sorrow, but it didn't feel genuine. Although Grandma was no longer with me, it felt more like a piece of me had. After that, Grandpa changed. His once warm eyes became aloof. Our visits decreased, and he stopped hanging around with his trains. What had been my sanctuary felt chilly and empty now. Because the house was too full of memories, Grandpa eventually went into a nursing home in a different city. I could understand why it was sold, but it still felt like another aspect of my youth had been lost. It wasn't the same when we went to see him once a month. The antiseptic visitor's room lacked the coziness that had previously made our time together memorable, and our visits were short. We were both unable to mend the raw wound caused by Grandma's absence. The barrier against the loneliness I experienced at home disappeared after Grandma left and Grandpa moved far away. Everything became controlled by Emily's needs, and life resumed as it had always been. The contrast, however, was suddenly even more noticeable. My grandparents made me visible where my parents had unintentionally rendered me invisible. It was absorbed by every family decision, every discussion, and every medical procedure Emily had. My words appeared to disappear as soon as they left my lips when I tried to discuss friends or school. They didn't appear to be picked up. I became more reclusive at home, and I typically declined friends' invitations to hang out at the university. It was easier to avoid queries about why I felt the need to pretend everything was all right or why I was always so miserable. Everyone was aware of Emily, of course, but nobody had any real idea what it was like to live in her shadow. Since Emily did not select her health problems, I felt ashamed, but that did not make the actual suffering of neglect any less genuine. Specifically, the guilt was awful. I felt terrible because I wanted more attention. And I was upset that Emily was constantly given priority. Feeling important was more important than merely getting attention. Despite my parents' best efforts, I still felt like I was peering in from the outside. At this point, I brought up family therapy for the first time, but I had no idea what to anticipate. I thought I'd give it a shot. My parents consented, much to my surprise. Maybe they thought a professional could assist close the growing distance between us, or maybe they didn't know what else to do. In any case, we were seated in a calm office with a therapist who appeared sincere in wanting to hear from each of us. We started going to therapy sessions on a regular basis. I was a little optimistic at first that things might get better. I was able to finally communicate what I had been experiencing for a long time early on in those sessions. I expressed my desire for them to take notice of my hobbies and recognize my achievements, as well as how it felt to be the one neglected. It had been a while since I felt as though my parents were actually paying attention or that they recognized the profound impact their deeds, or lack thereof, had on me. They appeared taken aback, possibly even shocked. Tears, apologies, and vows to improve were exchanged. For a few moments we appeared to be moving forward. My parents paid closer attention and were more considerate. They found time for me alone, for things that weren't Emily's purview. We went bowling, saw a movie, and visited a museum. Even though it was unpleasant at first, it felt great to be the center of attention for a brief while. But Emily was aware of the shift. Since she wasn't used to sharing the limelight, her jealousy quickly surfaced. Small remarks like how much fun we must have had without her or how wonderful it was for her to have some alone time at home were the first subtleties. However, those comments quickly became more. She sobbed throughout dinner one night, saying my parents were favoring me and ignoring her. According to her, the reason they loved me more was because I was normal. My parents were shocked by the accusation and hurried to console her. We started to lose the delicate equilibrium we had been establishing. We stopped going on family vacations as often, and when we did, Emily's jealousy took center stage. My parents went back to their old methods because they couldn't decide whether to include me or control Emily's emotions. It quickly became evident that I was only living in Emily's reality once more. I felt bad for disturbing things, so I proposed that we resume our regular routine. I decided that accepting my position on the sidelines would make things simpler for everyone. However, our therapist disapproved of that notion, reminding us that the purpose of treatment was to disrupt these negative habits rather than to strengthen them. Even though it seemed like we were going nowhere, we persisted. The majority of our sessions were dominated by Emily's sentiments of envy and abandonment. Even in therapy, which was meant to benefit all of us, She continued to take center stage. Despite my frustration, I failed to find a solution. One session reached a breaking point when Emily accused my parents of loving and preferring me more. My parents went into a self-doubting, guilt-ridden spiral after the accusation. The progress we had been making was compromised as they rushed to reassure her. It was tiring to see the same patterns being repeated over and over. I started to question whether going on with therapy was really necessary. I was so exhausted. I was simply exhausted and no longer upset. I'm tired of attempting to articulate how I feel and of holding out hope that things will improve. I began withdrawing once more, both from the treatment sessions and from my family. I started to lose the tiny hope I'd been holding on to, the hope that perhaps things could be different. That change occurred within me. I came to terms with the fact that this was the way life would be. Therapy had become just another ritual in which I expressed my emotions, only for Emily's desires and sentiments to take precedence over mine. My parents couldn't come see me since they were too involved in Emily's life. I accepted that information as true. I had lost my anger. I had exerted every effort to draw their attention to me and help them comprehend what it was like to be ignored. However, it was obvious that they were set in their ways, and I was out of energy to challenge it. I started to completely stop going to therapy. What use was it to repeat the same things over and over again if nothing was going to change? My parents were aware of my increasing distance, but they were unsure of how to respond. They seemed to be only going through the motions when they tried to interact with me. Whether they inquired about my day or made awkward attempts to strike up a conversation over dinner, there was no genuine connection. My withdrawal was also observed by Emily. She had a mixed response. On the one hand, she was glad that she was once again the center of attention. There were still a lot of questions, on the one hand. She started questioning me about trivial topics, such as my after-school activities and the games I was playing. She didn't know how to connect, and to be honest, I didn't either by this point. We were both unable to overcome the hurdles that had been put in place by years of mistrust and misunderstanding. I began focusing on my studies and personal hobbies. I made friends, joined groups, and concentrated on things that had nothing to do with home. It was comforting to be surrounded by people who knew Emily yet recognized me for more than just her sibling. I came to understand that I didn't need my family's approval by spending more time at school and with friends. I could establish my own personality without having to worry for my sister's demands. One day, during a particularly difficult therapy session, everything came to a head. I had been listening in silence as the therapist brought up Emily's sentiments of envy and desertion once more. She was always the focus. I had made an effort to speak up earlier in the session, describing how it felt to be repeatedly ignored. However, the topic quickly returned to Emily's difficulties. I was used to it at this point, yet it seemed different that day. Perhaps it was the years of frustration building up, or maybe it was the understanding that I had had enough. I paused the session after taking a deep breath. I told them everything. I had the impression that my family was looking straight through me. How I had given up on the idea that things would be different. How Emily's needs always came first and birthdays, accomplishments, and little moments had become meaningless. I described how agonizing it was to watch them defend the necessity of the current situation and how I had finally realized that nothing would change. The room was quiet after I was done. My parents were surprised, as if they were unaware of how deeply I was hurting. The harm was already done, even though the therapist made an effort to steer the discussion in a more constructive direction. My parents defended themselves rather than owning up to the damage they had caused me. They discussed how difficult it was to balance everything, how important Emily's health was and how they were trying their hardest. Emily joined in, saying I was attempting to make her feel awful over something she couldn't control. When she was the one dealing with actual difficulties, she accused me of being selfish for seeking attention. I wasn't surprised by what she said, even though it hurt. The hidden lesson that my feelings were not as significant as hers was one I had heard before. The therapist made an effort to diffuse the situation, but the damage had already been done. That's when I knew nothing would change. My parents were unable to see past Emily's needs, and Emily was only able to see her own difficulties. I never really succeeded in making room for myself, so I was caught in the center. For me, that session was a turning moment. I made the decision to stop trying to make things better. I kept being caught between Emily's and my own demands after that. Now though, I was simply worn out. I had lost my anger. Peace was what I desired. The conflict was no longer interesting. I became progressively more reclusive during the following few weeks. I concentrated on my studies, looking for internships, college scholarships, and any opportunity to travel far from home and be independent at last. I started searching for distant colleges where I could start over without having to worry about the dynamics of my family. I craved distance, both physically and emotionally, even though I loved my family. I rejected my parents' suggestion that we consult a different therapist to get a different viewpoint. I had given up on attempting to fix anything that was too damaged. Despite their apparent disappointment, they didn't press the issue, either because they were growing weary of the never-ending battle or because they were starting to realize that some wounds couldn't be healed. However, Emily didn't appear to notice that I was withdrawing. She was once again the center of attention, and she was perfectly content with it. Every now and again she would inquire about my plans, but our discussions never progressed past the obvious. I didn't see a way to close the distance between us now that we had drifted apart. I became more and more preoccupied about my future. I applied to colleges, went to college campuses, and put myself into getting ready for life beyond high school. My grades improved, my friendships grew stronger, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was making progress toward a personal goal. I was creating a life apart from Emily, my parents, and the never-ending cycle of letdown. In the end, I received acceptance to a college in a different state. I could travel home if necessary, but it was still distant enough for me to be independent. When I told my parents, they were pleased for me, but I also felt sad. They must have seen that this was my method of bidding farewell to the family dynamics that had continuously molded me. They made no effort to persuade me to remain nearer to home. Rather, they only sent me their best wishes and said they would come see me when they could. I felt as though a burden had been removed when I left home. The independence that came with living alone thrilled me. I moved into a tiny dorm room after packing my belongings. The initial weeks were peculiar. The silence and the lack of Emily's incessant demands were unfamiliar to me. However, I quickly adapted to my new existence. I joined groups, made new friends, and found that I liked having my own identity. I was able to be myself for the first time in years, not the forgotten sibling, not an afterthought, just me. It was freeing. I discovered that I didn't miss home as much as I had anticipated as the months went by. Even though I continued to communicate with my parents, the distance gave me the freedom to unwind and discover my identity without having to worry about family responsibilities. I became aware that the resentment I had harbored for so long was beginning to lessen when we spent time apart. I no longer had animosity toward Emily, and I was no longer upset with my parents. Even though I hadn't always appreciated their best efforts, I now realized that they had done the best they could. Learning to let go of my expectations brought me serenity. Life in college was enjoyable. I was surrounded by individuals who noticed me, paid attention to me, and gave me a sense of acceptance. These close companions turned into family. We commemorated accomplishments, birthdays, and even the minor triumphs that my family had frequently disregarded. I was no longer only an afterthought for the first time. Being a part of something was an incredible feeling. Even though I had discovered a new sense of belonging, I still missed my family. I stayed in touch, but we only had surface-level interactions. The deeper problems that had afflicted us for so long were never explored. Reopening old wounds was something I wasn't sure I was ready for. So, liberated from the shadow of my past, I carried on living my life and making it genuinely mine. It wasn't flawless, but it was sufficient. I had been looking for a place where I could just be myself all my life. I had finally located that location. With time, the distance between my family and I became more about emotional isolation than it was about geographic distance. I was finally starting my own life without the burden of my family's past. I wasn't just existing at college, I was thriving. For the first time, I felt appreciated and seen for who I was, not only for what other people at home had classified me as, and I made friends who truly liked me. I would still occasionally contact home, mostly out of duty, but those conversations always felt pointless. My parents would nod courteously when I told them about my friends or school, but it was always obvious that Emily was still very important to them emotionally. As soon as I brought up her name, the topic of conversation would go back to her most recent health information, difficulties she was facing, and how she was handling everything. When it felt that my life was merely a footnote in their world, it was hard to stay involved in such discussions. I couldn't fully give up on the possibility that things would change in the future though. I was depressed even though I had long since moved on from the grudge. There was still a secret longing for a family that would embrace me the way they did Emily. My parents would simply give me a quick phone call or a fast text message to mark milestones, holidays, and birthdays. I had given up on expecting anything more by that point. I rejoiced with my pals, who had become my real family. They were the ones who made me feel important, who remembered my birthday, and who were there for me when I needed them. During my last year of college, I made the decision to spend Christmas at home 1 year. Since I hadn't been there in a long time, I reasoned that perhaps enough time had gone by for things to feel different. Perhaps I had changed and matured enough to manage the dynamics that had before overwhelmed me. The house was the same when I got there, yet something felt different. Maybe I was the difference. Perhaps the area that had made me feel so small was now too small for me. My parents' cordial welcome gave me a fleeting optimism that this visit would be unique. However, the old patterns quickly reappeared. Once more, Emily was at the center of every discussion. Her needs, her challenges, her accomplishments. I listened politely, but as the days passed, I noticed that I was emotionally withdrawing and reverting to the corner I had occupied for so long. It seemed as though I had never been gone. Christmas morning was the decisive moment. My folks hadn't remembered to buy me anything. There was nothing for me as we sat around the tree exchanging gifts, no name-branded item, no sign of appreciation. I saw Emily's happiness light up the room as she opened her presents. My parents valued her so highly that they were oblivious to my silent existence. My life had been fashioned by years of overlooked milestones, forgotten birthdays, and subtle neglect, all of which were brought back to me in that moment. This time, however, I experienced acceptance rather than rage or sadness. I had finally come to the point where I didn't require their approval or affirmation. I didn't need them to congratulate me because I had learned to do it on my own. I silently packed my belongings that night and departed early the next morning. There was no conflict, no spectacular departure. I was aware that I had at last reconciled with my childhood family. Knowing they wouldn't change, I just turned away. However, I realized that I no longer required their space. In a family that didn't know how to provide for me, I had spent years trying to find a place for myself. In the world I had created for myself, I had discovered that place somewhere. Life continued. I got a job in a distant place after graduating with honors from college. It was everything I had ever wanted. A new beginning, a clean slate, unencumbered by my family's past, and the freedom to become who I truly wanted to be. For the first time, I felt genuinely pleased with what I had achieved, and my friends joined me in celebrating by throwing a party in my honor. I became acutely aware that my happiness was independent of my family after spending time apart from them. We never delved into the underlying concerns that had created our relationship. Instead, our interactions remained superficial when I periodically visited home. And that was all right. I had given up attempting to alter the fact that Emily would always come first for my parents. As the years passed, my life kept changing in unforeseen ways. I created a life that felt completely unique, surrounded myself with people who appreciated me, and got a job I enjoyed. I had discovered how to be happy without looking to my parents for attention or praise. I still occasionally think about my family, including Emily and her life to this day, as well as my parents, who still focus on her. I'm curious whether they ever consider me. If they ever consider what they missed or how things ended. I don't think about it though. I've moved on and accepted that things will always be difficult in my connection with them. In my opinion, a family is made up of everyone who supports you, accepts you for who you are, and loves you without conditions, not only your biological relatives. With more love and support than I ever imagined, my friends have grown to be like family. Though I've learned to love myself enough to let go of the desire for their approval, I will always adore my parents. The fact that I've created a happy life is ultimately what counts. I am incredibly thankful for the lessons I have learned, the strength I have acquired, and the person I have become as I sit here now and think back on the path that has led me to this point. I never lost myself, even though my family may have forgotten me in many ways. And that's what matters most of all, I've come to realize. My sister can't have kids, and now my brother-in-law is stalking me because I refuse to be a surrogate to have a child with their DNA. My sister is identical to me, 30F. For the purposes of this narrative, we will refer to her as Stacy. Our father reared us after our mother tragically died during childbirth. I've been seeing Mike for the past 3 years, while Stacy has been married to Jeff for 8 years. My sister's desire to become a mother is something I've always known about her. She was constantly coming up with ideas for weddings, nursery themes, baby names, etc., even when we were kids. I was always more interested in reading and enjoying yourself. I'm currently working as a flight attendant and trying to have my writing published. My sister has never held a job. To be honest, we enrolled in college right away after high school. After graduating from college, she became a stay-at-home girlfriend to her fiancé, whom she eventually married. I've been aware for some time that my sister has been making fruitless attempts to conceive. Despite spending thousands of dollars on IVF and pretty much everything they could try because she wanted to experience pregnancy, she has had one miscarriage and has not been able to conceive again. They have begun to talk about other choices after 5 years of failure. My sister is keen about having a child that has both of their DNA, her words, not mine, and is not interested in adoption. She visited my place around 3 weeks ago and we were simply chatting and watching Modern Family as normal. She told me she needed to ask me an important question while she still had the courage. She asked if I could be her surrogate, which made me nervous. After a moment of inaction, I asked her what she meant. She said that she needed me to be her surrogate since I understood what a surrogacy meant. She was aware, I said, that I had no desire to have children. I'll be honest and say that I have never found the idea of having children appealing in any way, however this may be because of how we were born. I informed her that although I could not bear her child, I would have no problem giving her my eggs, no matter how many she needed. She was furious when she heard that. She was screaming that it's clear how envious and spiteful I am because this is a simple work. Her cheeks flushed. She had always mentioned having more than 4 children, but I didn't want to bring it up. Would I be expected to do this each and every time? I'm beginning to feel terrible, and I'm not sure. In the end, she told me that I could never be her sister if I couldn't do this one thing for her. She rushed out after smashing a photo of us that I had on my mantle. Since then, she has only sent me images of her vision boards and diaries from when we were children, claiming that I'm preventing her from starting a family pointlessly and that I should see the wider picture. Because it's such a sensitive topic, my boyfriend doesn't feel comfortable trying to influence me in either direction and won't give me advice, claiming that it belongs to my sister. Sincerely, this is the longest period of time I have ever gone without speaking to my sister, and I'm so close to caving in. Is it incorrect of me to refuse to act as my sister's surrogate? Edit, As I read over all of the comments, I would like to express my gratitude. Knowing that I am not the villain makes me feel so much better, but I would be lying if I claimed that I am not inclined to just do it. I can't articulate how much this distance from my sister makes me feel, but I see too many questions that I want to respond to in the hopes of receiving other answers. Money. My mother's death was caused by a provider error rather than natural causes. My sister and I don't have to worry about money because we have substantial trust from the money my father used to fight the hospital. Not working for 9 months or having to pay for the egg retrieval procedure, etc., is not a problem at all because her spouse is also financially secure. The fact that the baby shares our DNA and that one of us is carrying it because we are identical is more a result of her stubbornness. How can I conceive if she can't? We were involved in an automobile accident that prevented her from becoming pregnant and caused her to miscarry. She and our father received the brunt of the collision because they were in the front seat. She has experienced severe difficulties with egg retrieval, and regrettably, her body is no longer capable of bearing a kid. I don't know exactly how that went wrong, but I do know that it isn't working and isn't an option. Getting her to talk about non-viable choices so I can better grasp them is difficult. I don't have a child, so doctors won't let me be a surrogate. I greatly appreciate your knowledge. We always watch football with our dads and significant others, so this Thursday we're having a family supper. If she chooses to go, this subject will undoubtedly come up. Update 1, 2 days later. I promised to give you an update tomorrow, but last night, while I was hanging out, my dad called and invited me over for supper so we could talk. I want to start by expressing my gratitude for all of the advice and comments. Not only were some of you rude to me, but also to my sister and boyfriend. I still value the assistance. When my dad called, I assumed he had spoken to Stacy, so I didn't even inquire what it was about. I know you guys won't be pleased based on the responses, but I asked my partner where he thought he would be if I went forward with it. He assured me that he loved me and would be there for me no matter what, but he would not stand by and watch while my sister treated me like garbage if I was acting in this way under duress. I genuinely fully understand his statement that he wouldn't be able to support me. My sister and brother-in-law were already at my dad's when we arrived for dinner. When we walked in, I spoke to both of them, but only my sister answered. My brother-in-law met my partner alone and gave me the most repulsive look. There was an uneasy stillness and tension that might have been sliced with a butcher knife when my dad seated us down at the table. "Somebody talk," he said. "This has to be fixed before tomorrow night's game." My dad is a huge football fan, haha. I began by informing her that I had done some research and that, in addition to my original worries, I now had a few more and needed to know precisely what she needed from me. I started by asking her what it would be like to be a surrogate. "Are you agreeing to it?" she said. She started crying when I informed her that I simply wanted more information. Considering that I have never successfully carried a kid to term, I asked her if she was aware that a doctor might reject me as a surrogate. She claimed to be aware of this and to have simply sent my brother-in-law and I to a center of excellence, so we could act like a couple. After my successful insemination, I would ask that provider to transfer me to her OB/GYN so that I could continue receiving care. My father stepped in and told me that it was a bad idea to try to become a mother by asking me to do something that a doctor wouldn't approve. He didn't want to take sides, but it was clear that he didn't agree with any of it. My brother-in-law interrupted him by saying, "Don't try to berate my wife with these stupid questions." After he asked her why she felt so uneasy about the thought of a surrogate. Discuss with your self-centered daughter the reasons for her inability to assist her sister. That changed the atmosphere right away. When my partner called me a b***, he began to yell at me. My father told him that he was not allowed to treat his daughters disrespectfully in his house. Everything simply caught fire. My sister was sobbing and pleading with me to do her this favor. I was afraid and didn't want to die, so I told her that I would switch places with her if we could. That was probably the first time I had ever spoken that out. After that, we were unable to settle any further issues. My brother-in-law lost his temper and refused to apologize, so my dad asked him to leave. As he was leaving, my sister invited me to come chat to her alone on the porch and told him she would meet him in the car. She said she was simply on edge and it had been hectic, and she apologized for her husband calling me a b*** when we went out. I told her that we needed to work things out and that she shouldn't apologize for him. "You don't get it, you don't understand," she said repeatedly as she urged me to think again. She told me that her in-laws had cruelly joked at one of their recent dinners that she was a murderer, referring to the kid she lost, when I pushed her for further information. She claimed that when she questioned her husband about why he didn't defend her during the joke, he responded that it was true. He made strange remarks about how he was eager to see their child's appearance and that she couldn't make up for it. She suggested that I carry the child, and he was completely on board with the idea since he claimed he would never be able to look into a child and see pieces of both of them. She thought it was her idea, but the way she stated it, it sounded like he sowed the seed. She stated she only wanted my assistance to get things back to normal because she hadn't seen him so enthusiastic since the baby. I tried to tell her that what she was attempting to accomplish was incorrect and that nothing would ever be normal again. She replied she would call me later, but he began honking the horn and hurried her to the car. I am not even willing to donate my eggs so that she might have a child with him, even though I feel like I might lose my sister. I looked into the egg donation procedure as you suggested and wow, it was quite different from what I had anticipated. Her divorcing him is what I want. I will never assist her in having children with that man. I honestly believe that before I ever let her implant his child in me or use my eggs to even conceive a child with him, I would serve as a surrogate for her to become a single mother. I was unaware of how much shame his family was forcing on her. Every time my phone rings, I literally jump at it because I know she will be calling soon and I will have to let her know. I can't and won't do this. Even though I'm afraid I'll lose my sister. I appreciate all of your help, but I probably won't update anymore. Update 2, 1 week later. Although I know I promised to stop updating, a lot has happened, and I can't even begin to describe the strange sense of comfort I get from writing my insanity on this page. Many of you advised me to use greater caution around my brother-in-law out of concern that he would turn violent. I'm kicking myself now for not paying attention. I believed this to be a minor setback and that I knew my family well enough. How incredibly gullible of me. The day after he called me a b***, my sister called me back the next morning, but I was in the shower and missed the call. There was no answer when I called back. Before we arrived at my father's place that evening for football, the day was typical. My sister had just in after kickoff. My dad was asked to step outside and speak with her spouse. Since the game was on and he had the option of waiting until the commercial break or coming in and apologizing like a man in front of everyone who saw him treat me disrespectfully, my dad said no. She inhaled and pointed out that he wasn't being entirely honest. My father became enraged when she attempted to make similarities to a past circumstance. He apologized for failing her as a father and assured her that he didn't train her to be weak and insignificant for a man. He also added that whatever he did led her to believe that this was the way to have a healthy relationship. Without saying another word, she simply rushed out as her eyes began to water. After the game, I had a smashed front passenger window and 2 flat tires when I went outside to my car. After putting 2 extra tires on the automobile and towing it into his garage with his truck, my dad instructed me to take his second car. "Don't worry," he replied. He would fix the car and I could come retrieve it whenever I had time. I said no when he asked if I wanted to spend the night. My sister didn't pick up when I called her. "I can't believe this is where we are," I texted her, adding a few more words to keep some of it hidden. "It should never be necessary to destroy your family in order to love a man." "That's the problem," she said in response. "You refuse to assist me in rebuilding my family, which has already been ruined." After that, I tried phoning her again, but she didn't pick up. I saw a car following me on the way home. Upon gaining a clearer perspective, I recognized the vehicle as belonging to my sister's mother-in-law. She has an extremely unique car decal that I have never seen anywhere else, which is the only reason I knew this. In a panic, I called my boyfriend and asked him to come back to my house. The automobile came up behind me as I pulled into my driveway. Fortunately, by the time my brother-in-law exited his mother's car and attempted to approach me, my partner was turning down the street. My boyfriend was shouting at him as he ran out of his car. Jeff began shouting right away. I simply wanted to apologize. I only wanted to say I'm sorry. After a brief altercation with my boyfriend, Jeff returned to his mother's vehicle and drove away. Although it didn't seem deliberate, he did collide with my boyfriend's car throughout the process, and it is still operable. I must admit that after this, I no longer felt quite at home. I haven't actually been home since I packed my bags and left for my boyfriend's house. Even though I know I will eventually have to return, I'm not entirely sure I want to. Even if my dad installed a camera and floodlights to the driveway and back door. Yes, I did contact my sister, but neither that evening nor the next day did she reply in any way. Then I began to see a black automobile following me one day and a red one the next. I know you could say I was frightened and only dreaming, but I would see them begin to follow until I drove in the direction of the police station, as instructed by my dad, and then they would stop as soon as they saw the station. I joined a few pals for breakfast on Sunday to celebrate a friend's impending nuptials and talk about the specifics of the bridal shower. The waiter approached me and informed me that there was an emergency and that my spouse was up front. I walked up to see my brother-in-law, assuming it was my boyfriend and she was just misinformed. In an attempt to avoid creating a commotion, I walked up to him, spoke softly, and told him to go or I would contact my father. He informed me that he just wanted to apologize because everything had just gotten out of hand. It was odd since we were sort of in the doorway and people were rushing in and saying, "Excuse me." I therefore proposed that we move outside to clear the area. He stated he didn't mean to call me a b****, and apologized when we got outside. I interrupted him when he said that I didn't understand how difficult it was for him. Stating that I didn't care since his actions were getting too aggressive and disorderly, not only toward my sister, but toward everyone else as well. He begged me to think again, but he acknowledged that he could understand how I could feel that way. I immediately retreated and urged him to go as he reached for my stomach. I mentioned that my dad's stalking was a problem and that we could arrange a time to speak, or I would call the police. He grabbed a handful of my hair as I was making my way back inside the restaurant and said, "Don't you effing walk away from me." After that, I honestly don't recall much because everything happened so fast and several onlookers became involved. Although he ultimately ran away before the police could reach him, a report was made. Similar to what happened at the restaurant, he attempted to approach my airport terminal 2 days earlier, claiming to be my spouse and informing them of an emergency. He refused to leave and was taken into custody. Naturally, he received bail and has since started sending me the most disgusting messages. After the performance he gave at my employment, my sister did leave him. She has been pleading with me to drop the charges, using her current residence with our father as justification. Despite my actual scalp bleeding from the force with which he pulled my hair and the minor scratches on my arms and neck from when he continued to act aggressively when strangers attempted to assist, she has been certain that he did not hit me at the restaurant. In some of the texts he sends me, he describes the horrible things he will do to me, such as how he will get me pregnant and keep me with him forever. How he knows I am the woman who will give birth to his kid and how if I don't make things easy for him, we will both pass away before he quits up. Just some extremely alarming things. All of these are coming from different texting applications because I banned his number. When I told the police, they indicated that nothing could be done until he took action because there was no way to verify that it was him. I literally live in constant fear. In addition to the usual safety measures I take, I'm taking even more care now that my boyfriend takes me to work. I have trouble falling asleep. My sister has stopped communicating with me, and I send her a screenshot each time her husband messages me. My dad has urged me to stop because it's hurting her, but I told him that she needed to understand the abuse her husband is causing and that I couldn't believe she stood up for him during some of this. I feel like I've lost. My sister and I may not even be able to recover from this. I feel awful because I feel like I've essentially taken over my boyfriend's life. He hasn't mentioned it, but because I'm afraid, he occasionally has to cut short his usual gym sessions if he needs to pick me up or leave me off when I have to go somewhere else or work. He can do more of his routine when he's gone for a day because of flights, but we're essentially compelled to live together now. I like it, but I don't know if he does. I can't breathe, and I feel like my life is slowly spiraling into lunacy because of the dispute we had the other day about the AC temperature. Update 3. 1 week later. Hello. My brother-in-law is currently stalking me, but I'm not sure where to begin. He wants me to have his child, but I don't want to delve into the specifics. Regretfully, the narrative only becomes more disorganized. The police said that the texts coming in from unknown numbers couldn't be linked to him. So I unblocked him after others advised me to do so. He has messaged me a few times from his real number, stating that we need to speak and reach a consensus. Naturally, I haven't participated. The disgusting texts from odd numbers have persisted. I always feel like someone is following me, but I can't be sure. I feel like a blue car is following me when I go to Dunkin' for coffee. I've really taken a leave of absence from work because I've reached this point. I've moved in with my now fiancé and entirely abandoned my apartment. He was there when I went grocery shopping a few days ago. His hand rubbed my back as he came up behind me. I yelled and leaped to get his attention, and he feigned confusion by raising his hands and saying, "I'm sorry, I'll leave you alone." I'm sorry. The witnesses essentially accepted his apologies on my behalf and sent him on his way because he appeared so sincere. I was literally unable to breathe, speak, or even form words other than "someone help." I was so powerless. My apartment was broken into and left in ruins the next day. I received a strange number the next day with the warning, "It'll only get worse." I'm afraid. Right now my sister lives with my dad, and she is certain that it isn't her husband. He's been in contact with her regarding obtaining a fresh perspective and leaving the state because he feels like he's been unhinged and needs to re-enter, she said, adding that things went too far. I am at a loss as to how to persuade her that he is lying. It appears that the cops won't assist him because he hasn't done anything wrong. For anything to happen, I feel like I need to die or have him seriously damage me. Help me, please. Since I'm in the United States right now, I would appreciate it if you could let me know about any laws that would be of assistance, or encourage the police to be more helpful. I'm having trouble falling asleep, and I'm getting to the point where I don't want to leave my apartment. Help me, please. Update 4. Even though this has been completely crazy, Reddit will always hold a special place in my heart. I will make this as brief as possible. My partner questioned me why I was looking at flats once he learned that I was going to rent one for a short time like a fool. He proposed to me right away after I informed him that I thought he needed his space back. I'm actually engaged right now. Taking over his flat has made me feel much better, haha. I explained that my brother-in-law was getting out of hand in a post in the advice subreddit. He came up to me at a grocery store, and I didn't do well defending myself there. It wasn't my best moment. He shattered a few items in my kitchen, damaged my bedroom, and broke into my house. He is aware of my passion for my espresso machine and mugs. Yes, cameras were later placed, but I wasn't present. During my leave of absence, I essentially kept hidden away in my fiancé's apartment. Before I received a surprise call, my sister had been ignoring my texts and not interacting with me. She was crying on the phone when I answered. I thought something had happened to our dad, so I asked her what was wrong. She clarified that she knew her husband was following me because she had been monitoring him. She claimed that she was telling me because she had gone to the police, who had informed her that they would send someone to speak with me. We spent 5 hours on the phone. My light bulb went off after the hair-pulling incident and I went into investigative mode, she explained. She claimed that she chose to call the police because she was worried about my safety at that point. She expressed regret for putting me under so much stress. Although she would want to put all the blame on her spouse, she admitted that a small part of her was astonished when I said no. She clarified that she doesn't care about the DNA issue. My brother-in-law was the one who demanded it. All she wanted was for her family to be whole. She will be temporarily living with me at my house until the divorce is finalized and everything has calmed down. They have a prenuptial agreement, so it shouldn't be too difficult, but I'm sure he won't make the divorce simple. A side note. When my father slipped and revealed that my sister's husband had broken into my house, I did learn of it. It seems like she kept the knowledge because she needed to make a decision. He claimed that after she told him, he told her she had no other option and forced her to leave right away. It seems that she didn't fight very hard. I'm not really sure how I feel about this, but my dad stated that he believes she only needed someone to say it to her in order for her to understand. I'm glad she ultimately made the right choice. The following day, the cops arrived at my fiancé's flat. After I gave my statement, they told me that they wanted to have an agent drive an unmarked car around me for a day and that he would be arrested if he followed me. They said that it would happen right away and that I shouldn't panic if I thought I was being followed, but they didn't tell me which automobile was after me. In essence, he was apprehended just 2 hours after I left my fiancé's residence. He was stopped and taken into custody as we drew into the third place where we went on a date. That night at the restaurant, I had more margaritas than I should have. I was informed by the detective that I will receive a call from the DA's office, which I believe will happen tomorrow. Given the way things have gone, I honestly don't think they'll hold him to much, But I do hope that since they have his phone, they will be able to physically verify that he was texting me, which will increase the severity of his sentence. This week, I have my first flight back to work, and I can't wait to resume my regularly planned routine. I had the opportunity to watch the fantastic football games today with my sister, dad, and fiancé. I sincerely hope I never need to edit this again. Many thanks to all of you. My daughter banned me from her wedding. So I secretly canceled the whole thing I paid for. It's absolutely true that no one can harm you more than your own children. My circumstances are identical. Ava, my 27-year-old daughter, forbade me from going to her wedding. For the past week, I've been drinking and pouting. Her wedding, which I financed, was scheduled for yesterday. Yes, it was a wedding present that I was paying for. Ava was a challenging youngster. When she told me about her wedding preparations, I was relieved that she was finally getting married to someone she loved because I had a lot of nightmares while raising her. I helped since she and her fiancé were struggling financially and couldn't plan a good wedding. What do I receive in exchange? I was not allowed to go. The devastation is beyond words. I added my brother to the guest list by calling the wedding planner a few days ago. The guest list was full, he claimed. To see if we could arrange anything, I requested him to email me the whole guest list. He said that Ava had told him to keep the guest list private. I informed him that since I was her father and the one covering the wedding expenses, they had best follow my instructions. Despite his reluctance, he sent me the list when I threatened to call his boss. My heart sank when I saw that. I wasn't on it with my wife. Since neither my wife's nor my name was listed, I called the wedding coordinator once more and insisted there must have been an error. He clarified that he had been expressly instructed not to mention our names. Until he shared the email exchange between him and Ava, I couldn't believe it. They were told to prevent us from entering the venue, which made the situation worse. How devastating must that have been? Although I was aware of my daughter's animosity toward me, I never would have guessed that it would reach a level where she would not let me attend her wedding. She was at her bachelorette party that day, so when I frantically called her, her phone was on voicemail. She didn't call that day or the following, despite my message requesting her to do so. I arrived at her flat, where she and her fiancé were residing, on the third day, right before the wedding. She said that she was too busy getting ready for her wedding to meet with me. She was avoiding me since, by that point, the wedding planner had informed her that I was aware of the guest list. I went there to ask her a question, but her demeanor simply made me more irate. I informed her that I was aware that she had prevented me from going to the wedding. Well, good for you, was her response. Traveling to the location saved you time and effort. If I have time, I will forward the wedding photos. I went utterly insane. This was all there was, no explanation, no regret, no apology. Her cruelty made me cry. Tears filled my eyes as I questioned what I had done wrong to merit this. She said that I had always mistreated her, first by slapping a stepmother in her face and then by siding with other people. Even when she was at fault, she wanted me to stand up for her without reservation. When she harassed my sister's daughter, how could I stand up for her? When she was discovered using pills in class, I did defend her and prevented her from getting expelled. I helped her get into college. But she decided to remain unappreciative in spite of everything I accomplished. She accused me of generating negativity in her home when she noticed me crying. I reminded her that her wedding was being paid for by me. She became hostile and claimed that I owed her this and that I wasn't doing her any favors. I went crazy and told her that I owed her nothing. This wedding was a favor and I had done more than enough. She said she didn't have time for my emotional drama and asked me to go. When I got home, I sobbed uncontrollably in front of my wife, Mercy, who is Ava's stepmother. Mercy is a good-hearted and forgiving lady, yet she became enraged for the first time when she witnessed me cry. She urged me to do something about Ava. We must stop Ava from feeling entitled to harm us, she continued. Up until a year ago, when she eventually found a respectable job, Ava had been surviving off of my money. She didn't have any money saved for her wedding because of this. I'd had enough. I made the decision to discipline her. I called off all of the wedding plans. I didn't care that I hardly received any money back from the advance payments. I wanted to cancel the wedding planner as well as the wedding location, but I knew that would notify Ava, who could then make other arrangements. I intended to spoil her special day. I allowed her to keep her dress since she already had it. All of this made me feel bad, but after giving it some thought, I knew I had done more than enough for her. Why should I feel bad about interrupting her wedding if she didn't? When the wedding coordinator and the caterers and decorators showed up at the location on the wedding day, they were turned away. When the security showed them the cancellation email, it sparked a flurry of activity. When the wedding planner called to ask for the last payment, I informed them that I was no longer concerned and that they could speak with Ava about it. They informed me that when the venue guards denied Ava access, she got into a fight with them. Her fiancé saved her just in time after she nearly got arrested for trespassing. I had blocked her number when she attempted to contact me. I had denied her entry to the main gate when she arrived at my property. I desired tranquility, but I wasn't scared of her. Talking was pointless since, like she did when I visited her home, her comments would just make me feel worse. She needed to take responsibility for her conduct. She could no longer be repeatedly forgiven as a child. Ava just wanted her friends to attend her wedding, not family. I honored her decision. Fortunately, she had to deal with her friends about the wedding cancellation, so I didn't have to tell them. My parents were the only ones who weren't thrilled with what I accomplished. They said that regardless of how terrible our kids are to us, we should never treat them cruelly. I informed them that Ava was the cause of this. All her life, she had been cruel and egotistical. No matter how hard I try to defend what I did, the guilt still remains. I pretend to be brave, but I secretly regret calling off my own daughter's wedding. My heart has been relieved by writing this down, even if I have no idea why I'm here. Update 1. I appreciate all of your moral support. I didn't think my acts would be praised by others. I was afraid I would be considered a fool for taking such a harsh stance against my own daughter. A few of you inquired as to Ava's history of animosity toward us. I apologize for missing that previously. Here are the specifics. I had no idea how this format operated. My second wife is Mercy, a 45-year-old woman. My kid from my first marriage is named Ava. When Ava was 7 years old, I divorced her mother, my first wife. Ava's mother left me for him after finding someone else. I was granted custody of Ava because they were leaving for Europe and didn't want her. When Ava was 13, I remarried Mercy, and ever since, Mercy and I have had to deal with Ava's anger. Mercy is the object of her intense hatred. When she was a teenager, it made sense. It must have been difficult to watch someone take her mother's place. Mercy, a certified children's counselor and teacher, reassured me that Ava would be all right as an adult. She thought Ava would view me as more than simply her father. She would see me as a person in need of a companion. 5 years after the divorce, I got married in the hopes that Ava would value the fact that I had raised her by myself over those 5 years. Ava was disliked by both her mother and her new spouse. Regretfully, Ava showed absolutely no gratitude. Rather, Ava became increasingly hostile toward Mercy and me. In the hopes that Ava would find friendship there, I had to send her to live with my sister, who had a daughter of the same age, because things had gotten so horrible. After a few months of smooth sailing, my sister gave up less than a year later. Since it was their last year of school, my sister didn't want her daughter's grades to suffer as a result of the petty arguments that Ava and her daughter had, she informed me. I had to return Ava as a result. Ava lived with us until she graduated from high school, although she would spend her breaks with my parents. She eventually declared that she would complete her high school education while residing with them and refused to return home. I made arrangements for carpooling because my parents' residence was far from her school. As long as she was content and peaceful, that arrangement lasted. But her high school grades were terrible when they were released. At that point, I discovered that she had joined the wrong crowd, students who were doing drugs. She wanted to live with my parents because she had a nasty boyfriend. After they went to bed, she would slip out and tour the city until after midnight. Her senior year of high school had to be repeated. Another nightmare was getting her through college. She wouldn't have been accepted any place else due to her bad grades and depressing attitude, so thank God I had some contacts who helped her get a spot at a respectable college. She once again surrounded herself with the wrong crowd and used drugs while she was a college student. She had to go to rehab because things got so out of hand. She finally graduated at age 25, but she had a relapse the year after, so I had to send her back to treatment for a few months. She truly has been a pain in the butt, so calling her such wouldn't be impolite. She has continuously caused me distress, embarrassment, and misery. I'm so grateful for Mercy, my understanding wife. She could have talked me out of leaving Ava if she had been any other lady, but instead she was the one who continually urged me to wait. Mercy has given so much of herself for Ava and me, and I'm so grateful for it. The fact that I got married again, and Mercy even more so, seems to be Ava's biggest grievance. Mercy isn't Native American, you see. The Middle East was the birthplace of her family. Her parents, who were immigrants in the United States, were unable to support their 5 children, so she grew up in an NGO. They came to the United States with nothing after fleeing a war-torn area. I was drawn to Mercy for that reason. Despite having a difficult upbringing and little money, she persevered, obtained a master's degree, found a lucrative teaching position, and established a successful life for herself. Despite being a self-made woman, Ava refers to her as a gold digger. Yes, we have some generational riches because my family has had a successful export company for 2 generations. Since this is my second marriage and her first, Ava thinks Mercy married me for financial gain. Ava argues that if it weren't for financial gain, Mercy wouldn't have married a single father who was 12 years her senior. Mercy is 45 and I'm 57. I don't know who gave Ava these thoughts, but that's why she called Mercy a gold digger. A few of you also inquired as to whether Ava's mother had anything to do with this. In actuality, she hasn't gotten in touch with either Ava or myself since our divorce. All I know is that she was in Germany when I last heard from her. Regarding the present circumstance, Ava attempted to vent her rage by contacting me after I called off her wedding, but I prohibited her from doing so on any platform. When I called off the wedding, my parents were upset and offered to cover the costs if Ava wanted to reschedule. However, Ava betrayed them, saying they were supporting me. Using harsh language, she even threw them out of her house and told them not to come again. Although her teacher, who also happened to attend the same gym as me, was the one who discovered her high school substance use, she blames them for it. Following this, my parents had a change of heart and accepted my decision to call off the wedding. I can't give Ava the right to take advantage of and harm us whatever she pleases. I still haven't heard from her, so I have no idea what she's up to. 10 days after her alleged wedding day, my parents paid her a visit 2 days ago. They are still not married. They're probably arranging a new date or simply haven't followed through. Oh, and I blocked the credit card I was using to make the purchase. She still had access to it, but she hadn't used it much since landing her job. She will probably be upset by this, but I don't care anymore. I don't feel guilty now that I know how she treated my parents. They have always cherished and protected her, and they are in their late 70s. It was right to cut Ava off. Update 2. Hello everyone. Although it has been more than a year since I last updated this topic, I have remained in close contact with all of the people who PM'd me or left comments on the post. A few weeks later, I learned that Ava had married her fiancé in a secret ceremony attended only by their closest friends. I wished her luck in life and was pleased for her. I had no social media connection to her, so I had no idea what was going on in her life. My niece informed me that Ava had changed her Facebook status to reflect her and her husband's move to a nearby city. Before I received a call from an unknown number a week ago, everything in my life was going according to plan. It was Matt, Ava's husband. I was anxious, fearing that she might have suffered some sort of mishap. She wanted to meet me in person, which surprised me, but he reassured me that she was okay. He claimed he would explain when we met when I asked why. He proposed getting together for supper and said he was in town. In my heart, I hoped that this would be an opportunity to make amends with Ava. I believed that Matt was serving as a go-between and that she might be too embarrassed to approach me. I went to see him with great expectations, but to my disappointment, Matt arrived by himself. He said he had no idea where Ava was when I inquired about her. With a sinking heart, I inquired as to her whereabouts. Then he disclosed that they were no longer together. According to Matt, Ava had a history of abuse during their marriage and had a serious problem with anger management. Even over small disagreements, she would hurl objects and smash household objects. For as long as he could, he put up with it, but eventually it got to be too much, and they split up. Matt continued by saying that Ava had psychological problems and attributed any problems she encountered to other people. Because they had relocated to a new city for his work, she and he had many arguments. Ava was angry at him for removing her from her hometown, even though she had secured a comparable well-paying position there. That was only one of their numerous problems. Matt stated he wanted to apologize face-to-face. He acknowledged that he had seen Ava treat me, Mercy, and my parents cruelly, but he chose not to step in since Ava had used him against us all. He felt bad for ignoring the warning signs and causing himself suffering. I informed him that Ava was to blame and that he was not. I held myself partially responsible for not raising her well. I also expressed my regret to him for what he had endured with Ava. Then Matt asked me to do him a favor. He claimed that Ava was pleading with him to take her back since she had been upset by the breakup. But after experiencing her mistreatment, he had lost interest in her. He nevertheless sent her warm wishes and asked if I could help her during this trying period. Because of her rage, Ava had lost all of her true friends and Matt felt I could help her by taking her to therapy. I informed him that although I hoped I could, Ava would not allow me to be close to her. He got it, and we both said we wanted to help Ava if she would let us. I made the decision to go see Ava after that talk. Unfortunately, things didn't work out as planned. She attacked Mercy and me, but I had come by myself so Mercy wouldn't see Ava's anger. In an attempt to soothe her, I apologized. Right or wrong didn't matter to me at the time. I just wanted to assist her. I advised her to see a therapist first, but otherwise, she could say anything she wanted about me. Ava brought up the past without listening. She screamed that she wanted to kill Mercy because she detested her so much. She acknowledged that she was embarrassed by our marriage and embarrassed to introduce Mercy as her stepmother, which is why she had barred us from attending her wedding. She threw me out of the house when I tried to talk sense into her, accusing me of being the cause of all her issues. To be honest, I don't care anymore, and I'm not sure if I was correct or not. I don't know how to help her, but all I want is for her to recover. Update 3. I appreciate all of your moral support. When I created the last update, I was pretty upset, and this place has truly helped me relax. Mercy advised me to get in touch with Ava's school closest buddy. We knew each other well because her family lived next door. I messaged her on social media to explain the situation because she now resides in South Africa. Since she was the only person Ava had never battled with, I requested her to get in touch with Ava in the hopes that she could get through to her. Her buddy promised to assist, and happily she did. Ava committed to therapy, and I think it's going well because she came to see my parents a week ago and expressed regret for her actions. She acknowledged that she was no longer able to contain her hatred because it had become so strong. She still holds me responsible for everything though, and stated that she would never forgive me. I no longer harbor any animosity toward her. Even though I'm not involved, I simply hope she has a happy life. I appreciate your support, everyone. I sincerely hope that no father ever has to deal with their own child's intense hatred. I sincerely appreciate you staying until the very end. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe if you truly enjoy our videos. Enjoy your wonderful day. Mom calls me selfish over a phone gift incident from my teenage years. Am I the asshole or is she? Original post, 28F, was visiting my mom this weekend and I turned a video on while we crafted Smosh's new Reddit video. One of the first videos they cover is on the story of a mother losing her daughter's Louis Vuitton bag. We listened to it and I said it sounded similar to the phone incident when I was younger. My mom got really defensive, said that I was selfish as a teenager and I'm acting selfish now. We argued for a bit and she said, I wonder what Reddit would think of our story. So I decided to find out. For my 15th birthday, my grandpa sent me a new smartphone in the mail. I was incredibly excited about it and my mom was really upset. She said that it was inappropriate for me to have a more upgraded phone than she did. He sent me the newer version of the phone she had, and that there was no way she was going to let me have the phone. So, instead of transferring my SIM card to my new phone, she went and transferred hers to the new phone and mine to her phone. Her argument was that I still had a newer phone than my previous one, so I should be grateful. But given the new smartphone had been a gift, I was really upset and called my grandpa, her dad, to complain. He then called her and chewed her out for it, which made her yell at me for involving him. She said again there was no reason for me to have such an upgraded phone when I only used it to talk to my friends and she used her phone for work. Our argument went on for over a week before I just dropped it, but I was bitter for a long time. She continued to bring up how unbelievably selfish I had acted and that she was disappointed to have raised such a selfish daughter. Every once in a while, especially at family gatherings, this story will be brought up by someone and the argument starts all over. My brother, 17 at the time, and my dad stayed neutral on it, and my grandpa was pissed but lived in another country and couldn't do much but call my mom like he did. That's the story. My mom called me selfish again when I brought it up and said that my continued bitterness towards this event just goes to show how ungrateful and entitled that I am. No matter how many times I tell her that what she did was pretty messed up. So who is the AH? Edit. The intention was always to show the verdict of this post to my mom, since it was her idea to see what Reddit would think. I texted her and asked her if there was anything she'd like to add before I forwarded the post to her and just got this back. As I have said, it was not appropriate for a girl of your age to have a more capable smartphone if you weren't going to use it for anything other than texting your friends. Your grandpa did not ask me before sending the phone to you. I told you that you could not have the phone and you continued to ask for it, so I gave you my old one as a compromise, which was a newer and nicer phone than the one you had, and you still continued to ask for the newer one even after I said no. I maintain that your behavior was that of a selfish teenager, and I think any moms on Reddit will agree with me. Hopefully your post puts an end to this argument. I will add that she said this weekend, this was before Instagram. What would you have used the phone for? The new phone in question was a Samsung Galaxy 2. My mom had the Samsung Galaxy 1 and I had a Nokia slider phone before my grandpa sent me the new one. Edit 2. I am going to take screenshots of this post and send them to my mom after work. We'll try to update when I can. I don't expect she'll be happy, but I agree with her that hopefully we can stop bringing this up. AITA has no consensus bot. OOP was voted NTA relevant comments. Commenter 1, your mom told you to take this to Reddit. She needs to browse more. People here generally don't like bullies. OOP, she likes it when I put on the Reddit videos when we hang out, but has otherwise never explored Reddit. But even in that video, the Smosh people absolutely called that mother the and my mom was like, well, our thing is completely different. Commenter 2. So gift stealing mother thinks you are selfish. Okay, did she do this with other gifts? Like take money from a gift for you? OOP. This is the only time in my life she has ever done something this extreme, which is why I think it gets brought up to this day, because it was such a wild situation for us and sticks out. OOP on getting the phone at the time. OOP. Valid concern. But the phone was genuinely a complete surprise from my grandpa. I had not asked for a new phone from my parents or my grandparents. Commenter 3. You are NTA, but your mom certainly is. It takes a hell of a lot of nerve to steal your child's gift because you want it and then claim that the child is selfish. Your mother's take is strictly self-serving, so she doesn't have to admit that she's wrong for stealing from her own child. Update. Posting an update here instead of AITA so I can just add screenshots. It is unfortunately not much of an update. I sent my mom about a dozen screenshots from the, then, 100 or so comments on the post right when I got off work. She didn't acknowledge or respond to them for a while, kept trying to talk about other things, and I had to keep pressing her to read the comments. I did most of the heavy lifting. She kept trying to change the subject and I had to keep redirecting. I tried to call her a few times after she said she read the comments and she would not answer, even though I think talking over text made this infinitely more frustrating. I don't feel like we came to any conclusion other than to never bring it up again. The final screenshot is from my brother, Jay. Thanks to everyone for giving me better language to talk about this situation and sharing similar experiences. I think it is just something my family has never been able to get over, as stupid as it is. My grandpa passed away 3 years ago, so unfortunately we cannot get his opinion. Transcripts of the text messages between OOP and her mom. Mom, yes, I read the comments you sent me, Mom. Obviously it isn't great to see random Reddit people talking about me on the internet. OP, I know, OOP, like I'm not even upset about the actual phone anymore. I feel like you keep mentioning the phone specifically. It's now more that after all these years you won't acknowledge even a little that what you did was hurtful to me as a teenager, and that people like Jay keep bringing it up because it was hurtful. I'm really sick of being called selfish for years because of this one thing, and you keep bringing it up seemingly just to tell people you think I'm selfish. Sorry to say, but I think most of the family agree with the Reddit comments. Mom, yes, okay. I do understand it's not about the phone, Viv, but when a mother says no, she expects that to be the final word. When you have kids, you will understand. From my point of view, everyone is questioning my parental decisions. Does not feel good being called an a-hole for saying no to my kid. Why do cousins need to have an opinion about what happened, let alone strangers? Maybe selfish was the wrong word to use for your behavior. That's fine. OOP. I'm not even sure what to say to that. OOP. You say you understand it's not actually about the phone, but like, do you understand that how you went about this was hurtful and that you've continued to be hurtful about it for years? OP. There are literally comments talking about gaslighting me about this. OOP. Did you show Dad, Mom? Yes. OP. And? Mom. Dad says we need to both get over it. I would like to, but for some reason it keeps being brought up. OP. I would also love to get over it, but you are one of the ones who keep bringing it up. OP. Again, it feels like you keep retelling the story just to tell a story about me being selfish and for no other reason. Mom. Jay brings it up too. OOP. Jay brings it up to emphasize your behavior sometimes. IDKOOP. I think the rest of the family want it to be a funny story and it isn't for us. OOP. I am happy to never bring it up again. OOP. I'm sick of talking about it. OP. But that means you can't bring it up again either. OOP. If you do, I'll show people the Reddit post. LOL. Mom, that's fine. Mom, going to bed now. Love you. OP, night. Please call me tomorrow. Conversation between OOP and her brother, JJ. FFS's phone gate finally over. OOP. LOL, maybe she said you have to stop talking about it. J. OK _hand. IDGF. Top comments. Commenter 1. I commented on your original post, but in my mind I had predicted that this was going to be a reaction. This is such a frustrating response, but just accept it and roll with it. Some people will just never admit that they are wrong. That takes a lot of grace, and I'm sorry. A person who can't help but berate her own daughter is incapable of having such grace. So why keep that expectation? I mean, if the verdict would have been that you indeed were the asshole, she would have rubbed it in your face, but since she has been named the asshole, she wants to move on with life and forgive and forget. This was behavior that I think we all predicted. Maybe she should have thought twice before suggesting you put the story on Reddit, lol. Can't complain about strangers commenting on your bad parenting when it was your idea to open it up to discussion in the first place. You have just given a second example of her hypocrisy. Sorry if that's hurtful, she's your mother, but as an internet stranger, who saw your story that was approved by your mother to be posted and is hence proof that none of the details are fabricated or untrue, that story truly did not paint a respectable picture of your mother in my head. All I see is a selfish, manipulative parent who continues to be so in the screenshots you have shared. Anyway, what can you do? Take care and hopefully y'all will be okay. Commenter 2, your mom is just being so frustrating and upsetting, WTF. She can avoid and deny to face the reality all she wants, but at least next time if she brings it up again, you can just show the post to shut her mouth. Even reading this already makes me so furious. I guess it's because I also have a mom who's super entitled. I'm sorry you're going through this, but I hope she'll STF you from now on. After 10 years in prison, I'm unsure whether I should reach out to my ex-girlfriend or leave her in peace. What should I do? Sorry for any mistakes, English is not my first language. When I was a university student, I fell in love with Daria, not her real name, obviously. She was the little sister of my best friend, so I considered her off limits, but my crush on her persisted and grew. She's one of those beautiful, brilliant people who is alive and breathing to make the world a better place. How could I not be drawn to that? One day, she told me she had feelings for me. And to my relief, my best friend didn't have a problem with me dating his sister either. So for 2 wonderful years, Daria was my girlfriend. I should have asked her to marry me. I don't know why I didn't. I suppose I thought I had all the time in the world. We were young and there was no need to rush things. We lived in a country that isn't exactly democratic, and we were political activists. I ended up getting arrested and going to prison for 9 years. Please don't think I'm some kind of monster for this. I don't want to go into detail in case it makes me identifiable somehow, but we didn't hurt anyone or do anything immoral. What we did is not even illegal in the country where I currently live, and our beliefs were far from extremist. I haven't seen or spoken to Daria since the day I got arrested. My best friend died shortly after, and Daria left the country, partly due to the possibility that she'd be arrested too. There wasn't any way for her to contact me while I was in prison, though apparently she contacted my dad a few times in the beginning. Things got even worse in our country while I was incarcerated, so my dad and I emigrated when I was released. We've been living in Western Europe ever since, and life is pretty okay. I live with my dad, and I have a steady, if shitty, job. Months ago I found Daria online. She lives in a neighboring country, 7 hours away by rail. She doesn't use social media too much, but from what I've seen there's no evidence of a partner or kids. And even if she's married, I'd be content just to be her friend, as I was for the first years we knew each other. Part of me desperately wants to reach out to her, and my dad has been encouraging me to do so, but I feel like it'd be too selfish. The circumstances of her brother's death were very traumatic for her, and I'm afraid that I'm just a living reminder of all the bad things that happened to us. And if she does have a partner, would my contacting her offend him and trouble their relationship? I don't want to cause her any more sadness. Time stood still for me while I was in prison, but I know it didn't for her or anyone else. She's done so well for herself. She's built a whole life, and I don't want to derail that life just because I feel entitled to a place in it. She might not even remember me at all. And even if she did invite me back into her life, I'd be nothing but a burden now, owing to my wrecked mental health. We've been apart twice as long as I knew her. Have I even the right to miss her as much as I do? For now I've contented myself with Googling her name every so often and seeing that she's okay. It just hurts a lot, and I don't know how to make it not hurt. I still love her with everything I have. I probably always will. Should I reach out to her, or leave her alone? If I do contact her, what should I even say? TLDR, unsure whether I should contact my old girlfriend now that I'm free from prison. Update 1. The short version is that I was wondering whether I should try to contact my former girlfriend after I went to prison for a long time. The consensus was that I should, and people gave very good advice on how to do that. First, I want to say thank you to everyone who offered advice or kind words. I had spent so long feeling ashamed about my situation, and expecting most people to react very negatively if they knew. I had barely discussed it with anyone before, except my dad and people whose job it is to help me, lawyers, therapists, etc. And I was very surprised to be met with so much compassion from a bunch of complete strangers. Thank you, truly. Several people asked for an update, and that's the least I can do in return. I sent Daria a message the evening after I made my post. It was something like, I don't mean to intrude, but I wanted to say hello and thought I would give you my new contact information in case you ever felt like getting in touch. If not, that's completely fine too. I left her my mobile number and email address, wished her well, and that was that. I knew it might be a while before she responded, if she responded at all. So I tried to put it out of my mind. Early Monday morning, my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number from the country where Daria lives. Who else would ever be calling me from there? I panicked a little bit, but I managed to answer in time. She asked a few times if it was really me, and I couldn't tell if she was laughing or crying. At first she called me by the very affectionate version of my name she used to. But then she quickly apologized and corrected herself, which broke my heart a little bit. It was an awkward phone call, but not in a bad way. I was extremely nervous, and it seemed like she was too. But happy also. Some of you mentioned that Daria would want to know that I was safe, and this was more true than I could have guessed. Because unrest in my country increased a lot during the last year I was in prison, she was afraid that they would decide to quietly kill me rather than let me go. There are documented cases of other prisoners like me having met very suspicious ends in the months before my release, so it wasn't a totally unreasonable worry. She also said she repeatedly tried to send me parcels of supplies and put money on my commissary account, but her attempts were rejected without explanation. After my sentencing, I was not allowed to receive correspondence or to have a commissary account at all, because of the classification of my crimes, so she was forced to give up. She told me this as an apology, as if I would have been disappointed with her for not helping me more. I had no idea she had done any of that. I do know that it was not a safe thing for her to do, and I feel terrible that she put herself at risk trying to make me a little more comfortable. She didn't seem to want to talk about what happened any more than that, and so we didn't. We changed the subject to more light-hearted things. Our jobs, the cities where we live, how my dad is adapting to a new country, etc. When she arrived at work and had to end the phone call, she asked if I wanted to continue talking through a messaging app. Obviously I said yes, and downloaded it immediately. We sent messages throughout the day, and she even interrupted her commute home to send me a picture of a restaurant modeled after one of my favorite books, just because she thought I would like it. She told me that she thought of me every time she saw it, but unfortunately the restaurant itself was not so good. I was afraid she wouldn't remember me, but she even remembers the things I like to read. She remembers a lot of little things, even stuff I forgot. We have been sending messages back and forth ever since, and talking on the phone after I finish work at night, until she gets too sleepy. Sometimes it feels like I'm 24 and she's texting me from a few blocks away, as if the next thing she might ask is what's for dinner. Other times it seems like we're trying to will dead versions of ourselves back to life in order to avoid acknowledging what we've lost. She seems a lot more timid than she used to, more passive, which I suppose makes sense. Sometimes I worry about how much I've changed, and that maybe she won't find anything left in me that's worthy of her. But if I could express in words what it feels like to hear her laugh, I could explain that there's also a lot that we know very well. She hasn't lost her kindness, or her warmth, or her empathy. She still cares about me, and I still care about her. I know that rebuilding a friendship after all that's happened will take lots of patience, and I have plenty to spare. I'm just happy to have the chance to get to know her again. This morning, Daria asked if I want to have a video call sometime this weekend. I agreed, but I'm ashamed to admit that as much as I want to see her, I'm very nervous. I look so different than she would remember. My jaw is messed up and I have the teeth of a hockey player. Fortunately, I will qualify for healthcare insurance soon and be able to have it fixed. I lost weight that I haven't put back on, and I see an old man in the mirror. I'm also worried that I will get very emotional when I see her, and embarrass myself that way. I don't really cry in front of people. I'm not used to it, and this doesn't seem like a good occasion to start. Aside from not wanting to appear pitiful, I don't want her to feel forced to comfort me. If anyone has some advice on how to handle this, it would be much appreciated. Overall, this week could not have gone better, and I'm extremely grateful to everyone who gave me the little push of courage I needed to send her that message. 1,000 times, thank you. TLDR. I sent a message to my former partner. She was thrilled to receive it and we have been happily getting to know each other once again. Edit. Just to clarify, she doesn't have a husband or kids. As I said in my first post, I only considered contacting her because there was no evidence of a partner on her social media. But I understand that my first post wasn't visible for a while, so I can see why that may not have been obvious. Sorry for the confusion. Update 2. I've had a lot of people ask for an update, so here it is. The last 2 months have gone by very fast. I told Daria that I was nervous about the video call, and she insisted on having it right away so that I could get it over with and stop worrying. Seeing her made everything feel real in a way it hadn't before. She still looks like herself, or even more beautiful, different only in the sense that she is fully an adult now. The place she lives is very different from our home country, with a distinct culture to which she has assimilated. That she had time to adapt and feel completely at home in this place broke the illusion that no time had passed. In hindsight, that was probably the real reason I had been so nervous, because I could no longer occasionally forget myself and pretend that nothing had changed. The hardest part was not being able to reach through the screen and put my arms around her. Sitting there and watching someone you love cry, from a distance, is not easy. I barely noticed that I was crying too. She didn't seem surprised at my appearance, but she did eventually look me over and ask if the food was shit where I lived. I explained about my jaw, and that I'm getting it fixed. Less dental work is required than I thought, but I need a surgery. Her response was to ask for my address and order groceries to be delivered, including a lot of soft snacks that are easy to eat and these meal substitution drinks that are actually tasty. She sent them every week since, even though I tell her it's not necessary. When I wanted to pay her back, she laughed at me and said she owed me a lot of food, because I had kept her from starving to death in university. I loved being able to cook for her, and I suppose it makes her just as happy to feed me now. We talk every day and have made video calls a regular habit. It does me so much good just to see her face, and the awkwardness is mostly gone now. It's easy to talk to her. Last night, she brought her computer into the kitchen and talked to me while doing the washing up. It's amazing how mundane things like that can make me feel normal, and at home, in ways I forgot I could. I never thought I'd be that stupidly happy to see someone washing coffee cups. I'm beginning to think that the idea of home as a physical place is a misconception. She likes to send photos, to show me where she lives, what her life is like now. She was curious about how things are the same or different here. I didn't want to admit that I don't have much of a life to share back. Going places just didn't seem worth the effort. She is though. At first it was very small things. She would send a picture of a pastry she'd bought at a cafe, saying that she thinks her city has better pastries than mine. I would go out and get one so I could send her a photo too. Then it was beer, which city has better parks, interesting architecture, a department store, and so on. I figured out quickly that she was trying to coax me into going out more, but I played along to make her happy. I've seen more of my city in the past month than the entire time I've lived here before. I've been to the art museum, and finally joined my colleagues for a beer. Usually, I go places for short durations at the less crowded times, but I'm still going, which is something. Daria used to be very sociable. So I thought that whatever happened, at least she wouldn't be lonely. I was wrong. There is a lot she could never tell her friends, because they can't relate. They would feel sorry for her and cease to be equals, she says. Our experiences are different, but we are more able to understand each other than other people could. And despite her own burden, she has quietly picked up half the weight from my shoulders without ever being asked to. I am in awe of her, simply for being the kind of person who would. For Women's Day I sent her some orchids, and she was very happy that I remembered her favorite flower. The things I can do to make her smile are so small, and she deserves so much more than I know how to give her. But I would do anything for this woman, and I'm learning. There are protests happening where she is, with riot police and tear gas. Whenever this happens, she feels nervous and has difficulty sleeping. Now, at least I can stay on the phone with her at night so she's not alone. Aside from the anxiety, there is also a sense of nostalgia. She talks about when that was us, making noise in the street. I'm glad she has good memories too and doesn't have to be alone with them anymore. Finally, the reason I'm updating now. She is coming to visit. We were talking last night and I mentioned that a church near me has special windows designed by an artist she loves, and I was thinking about going to see them eventually. She said it would be unfair of me to go without her, so I invited her to come with me. And then somehow it turned from vague future plans to being scheduled for next Saturday. She was going to come for the day, but I told her it was silly to travel so far to stay for such a short time, and suggested she stay the entire weekend. So she will be here from Friday until Sunday. I haven't really had time to be nervous yet, but I'm sure I will. Thank you again to everyone who has given advice or encouragement, it is very much appreciated. My best friend abandoned her baby with me, now she's back to take her for a trust fund inheritance after her mother-in-law's death. We were freshmen at State University in 2013, which is when I first met Penelope, 29F. Our first encounter occurred when she wanted to borrow my notes after missing class due to the flu. We were both majoring in computer science. Following that, we began attending lectures together and eventually found ourselves in the same study group. We had a close-knit group of friends during our first 2 years of college. 6 of us would get together every Friday to study in the campus coffee shop before going to the neighborhood pizza place for dinner. Because Penelope and I were both only kids from middle-class households attempting to succeed in the computer industry, we grew particularly close. Both of us found employment in the same city after graduating in 2017. She found a job at a startup about 20 minutes away, and I worked at a software business downtown. We maintained frequent communication, getting together for lunch on Wednesdays and spending weekends with other local college pals. Penelope began dating Mike, a sales representative for her employer, around the end of 2019. I never really liked him. Even if he first appeared fine. He would frequently arrive late to group gatherings or abruptly cancel plans with Penelope. He ended their relationship by text message after roughly 6 months of dating. Penelope called me in tears 2 weeks after the separation to tell me she was expecting a child. Mike quickly blocked her number and moved to his company's office in a different state after she told him. It was very apparent that he had no interest in the infant. Penelope had my support during her pregnancy. I became her primary support system because her parents resided in Florida and could only visit periodically. I assisted her in shopping for baby goods, attended all of her doctor's appointments, and even watched YouTube videos to learn how to assemble a cot. The birth date of Emily was March 15, 2021. Due to inclement weather, Penelope's parents' travel was delayed, so I was in the birth room. I saw how difficult it was for Penelope to connect with Emily during those initial days in the hospital. Penelope was aloof despite the nurses' attempts to assist her with nursing and basic baby care. I began visiting Penelope's apartment every day after work when they returned home. I would prepare dinner, assist Emily, and frequently remain until 11 o'clock or later. I would take Emily for a little while on the weekends so Penelope could get some rest or sleep. With a crib, changing table, and more baby items than I ever imagined having, my apartment turned into a second nursery. When Emily was about 6 months old, the issues began to worsen. Penelope would phone me in the middle of the night to tell me that Emily's crying was too much for her to handle. Occasionally, when I got there, Emily would be crying in her crib and Penelope would be sitting on the couch. Penelope began skipping work a lot and hardly ever left her apartment. Penelope was let go by her employer in January of 2022. She started skipping work without warning after using up all of her sick days. Things truly took a turn for the worst at that point. She stopped taking calls from relatives and friends. Unwashed laundry was all around her flat, and unclean dishes were piled up. At 3 a.m. on February 12, 2022, Penelope gave me a call. I could hardly understand her since she was crying so much. She claimed Emily deserved more and that she was a bad mother. She pleaded with me to let Emily stay for a few days so she could get her act together. I was concerned about both of them, so I agreed. The following morning, Penelope delivered Emily to my flat along with 3 big bags of supplies and clothing. After giving Emily a deep embrace, she hurried off, promising to call Emily shortly. At the time, Emily was 10 months old. Penelope texted Emily every day throughout the first week to inquire about her. She wanted to know if Emily missed her, if she was eating well, and if she was sleeping well. Every time I replied with pictures and updates. Her texts decreased in frequency and length throughout the second week. By the third week, when I asked her when she would return, she would only respond with a single word. A month later, she stopped answering altogether. I made every effort to get in touch with her. She had moved out when I tried to reach her via phone, text, email, and even in person at her apartment. She hadn't contacted her parents either. Despite my worries, I had to concentrate on Emily. I hired a part-time nanny to assist during video conferences and changed my work schedule to spend more time at home. Emily fared remarkably well. She was a cheerful baby all the time, and it seemed like having a regular routine helped. At about this time, she began referring to me as Dada. I initially attempted to correct her, but my mother claimed that since I was her primary caregiver it was only normal. I got a certified letter from a law firm 3 months after Penelope left. In the legal forms in the packet, Penelope was asking me to adopt Emily and renounce her parental rights. In a brief letter, she expressed her inability to become a mother and her belief that Emily would live a better life with me. I contacted a family lawyer right away to manage the adoption procedure. The lawyer stated that adoption was feasible because I had been Emily's primary caregiver for months and Penelope was voluntarily renouncing her rights. We had to conduct background checks, have social workers visit homes, and post notices in newspapers. Emily officially became my daughter on September 15, 2022 after a 4-month process. After that, life settled into a comfortable pattern. In order to be more accessible, I made the decision to work from home permanently. 3 days a week, Emily began attending a local preschool, which she adored. Her professors praised her for being well-adjusted and gregarious, and she made friends easily. Every month my parents travel from Ohio to visit us. They showered Emily with gifts and attention, embracing their role as grandparents. Every time Penelope's parents call to see how Emily is doing, I send them pictures and updates. They never put any pressure on me regarding Penelope since they understand that I am now Emily's father. As a single father, dating has been fascinating. I usually scare women away right away or pique their curiosity because I'm always honest about having a daughter. Emily is my top priority, and I won't compromise on that. As a result, my 2 romances, each lasting a few months, terminated. Up until last week, everything was good. A knock on the door interrupted my work in my home office. Emily was enrolled in preschool. Penelope was standing there when I opened the door, and she didn't look at all like I remembered her. She appeared healthy, had well-groomed hair, and wore pricey clothing. She said that she had received assistance and was now prepared to become a mother. She had been attending therapy and was doing well as a project manager. Her goal was to regain custody and begin dating Emily. Since she had revoked her rights and I had legally adopted Emily, I informed her that was not feasible. She broke down in tears, admitting that she had erred and that her despair had prevented her from thinking clearly at the time. She became irate and threatened to get a lawyer when I refused to back down. She promised to provide evidence that she was forced to renounce her rights. I instructed her to get out and that my lawyer would have to handle any correspondence. I'm worried now. Emily is content, safe, and thriving in our life together. She has no memory of Penelope. I had to share this somewhere, but I've already phoned my lawyer to be ready for whatever Penelope might try. I will not allow anyone to take my kid away. Update 1. Since I last posted, a lot has transpired. Penelope sued, saying she had terminated her rights when untreated postpartum depression was plaguing her. A 15-page affidavit from her attorney described how I allegedly exploited her mental state to remove Emily from her. The text exchanges from 2021 to 2022 that were contained in the dossier showed Penelope requesting my assistance with Emily. Even back then, her lawyer misrepresented these messages to suggest that I was attempting to become Emily's mom. They also claimed that I had been preparing to obtain custody all along because I had baby goods at my apartment. After Penelope reached out to our former college pals, they became interested. I stole Penelope's baby, according to some of their Facebook posts. Our study group member Tom called me and told me that I should realize that Penelope was ill when she gave up Emily. After I'd declined to talk about letting Penelope see Emily, Lisa, another college acquaintance, blocked me on all social media. However, not everyone took Penelope's side. In a lengthy Facebook post, my friend Mark, who had frequently assisted me with Emily, described how Penelope had utterly abandoned Emily and disregarded all of my attempts to get in touch with her. He provided screenshots of our attempts to contact her that went unanswered. Emily's preschool has been in a tense situation. The director called me last Tuesday to let me know that Penelope had been keeping an eye on Emily while they were playing outside. She claimed to be Emily's mother and the right to see her from the personnel. She gave them old pictures of herself with baby Emily when they asked for identification. She refused to leave when the school security guard urged her to. She initially insisted that all she wanted was to see her daughter. Before she departed, they had to threaten to contact the police. I had to leave work early to pick up Emily after the director phoned me right away. The following day, I was at the school for 3 hours, updating all of Emily's documents. I provided them with copies of the court orders proving my sole custody and the adoption documents. I made it plain that no one else could pick Emily up, but I did add my parents to the pickup list. They changed their security procedures and now verify everyone's identity, even their known parents. Penelope began delivering parcels to our home. The first one, a big box filled with new toys, clothing, and a plush pink elephant, arrived last Wednesday. She sent a lengthy letter outlining her reasons for leaving and her deep regret. She put notes on the back of each picture and included pictures of herself with Emily when she was a newborn. Over the course of the following week, 3 additional shipments came. One had children's books that contained private notes. A handcrafted photo album of Emily's first few months was in another. The final one has a tablet with videos of Penelope reading bedtime tales already loaded on it. Emily hasn't seen any of it, but I'm keeping it all as proof. Last Friday, Mrs. Chen, my next-door neighbor, called to report that someone had been parked outside our house for a number of hours. I noticed Penelope's white Honda Civic when I looked. She left before the cops arrived, even though I had contacted them. Although they filed a report, the police stated that they were powerless to take any action until she threatened us or made direct contact. I discovered a message in our mailbox 2 days ago. Penelope noted that in order to give Emily afternoons free, she had adjusted her work schedule. She provided a thorough plan outlining how she intended to begin with monitored visits before progressively moving on to overnight stays. "I will continue to fight until I get my daughter back," she said at the end of the note. Emily has begun to ask questions that I find difficult to respond to. At school, she noticed Penelope observing her and inquired about the identity of the woman. Emily continually brings up the fact that I used to know her, even after I told her. Emily inquired yesterday if the woman would take her away. She no longer wants to attend school and has grown needy. My parents offered to let us spend some time with them in Ohio. It would be safer for them to reside in a guarded community. I thought about it, but moving would require removing Emily from her friends and school. She already has enough stress and adjustments to handle. When they learned of what was going on, Penelope's parents gave me a call. The way Penelope behaved appalled them. After leaving Emily, Penelope also stopped communicating with them, according to her mother. They searched but were unable to locate her. 6 months ago, she contacted them to inform them not to get in touch with me any longer. That was the first time they heard from her. According to my attorney, we have a compelling case. The adoption was completed correctly, including all necessary waiting periods and notices. Throughout the process, Penelope had her own attorney and willingly signed all the documents. He cautioned though that Penelope's attorney might attempt to drag this out in the hopes that I would consent to shared custody in order to put an end to the legal dispute. The expenses are mounting quickly. My attorney thinks that if this gets to trial, the $5,000 in legal fees I've already paid could increase significantly. Even though I'm fortunate to have savings, it's still difficult. I don't want this situation to become any more public than it currently is, but several folks recommended creating a GoFundMe. I'm recording everything for the time being, including every shipment, every school appearance, and every unwelcome contact. I placed security cameras all around our home and recorded Penelope passing by. I also started recording a thorough vlog of Emily's symptoms, including her queries, behavioral changes, and nightmares. Observing Emily's fear and confusion is the most difficult aspect. Every time someone knocked, she used to dash to the door. She is now hiding in her room. She constantly asks me to swear that I won't abandon her the way her last mother did. I had no idea that she was aware that Penelope was her other mother. She must have heard something in school, I suppose. I want this to stop, yet I refuse to comply with Penelope's demands. Emily is my daughter, and she has known me for the majority of her life as her only father. If someone decides they want to have children right away, I won't allow them to ruin her life. Update 2. Penelope's unexpected interest in Emily can be explained by something significant I learned about her. I received a Facebook message from Rachel, a nurse who used to work with Penelope at her previous hospital employment. She informed me that Penelope is now married to a wealthy Boston businessman and had another child 6 months ago. I received screenshots of Penelope's picture-perfect life from Rachel's private social media sites. She publishes pictures of her new baby boy, writes about charitable activities, and resides in a big house in a wealthy suburb. She discusses how parenthood transformed her life and the pleasures of being a first-time mother in each post. As Penelope's supervisor, Rachel had access to Penelope's old work emails, which contained the most crucial information. Penelope talked about her mother-in-law's final illness and a family trust fund that would be given to all of her grandkids upon her passing in these emails from 8 months ago. My lawyer did additional research and discovered more information. Last year, Penelope wed Robert Anderson. In Massachusetts, his family operates a series of upscale auto dealerships. Robert and his whole family were informed by Penelope that she had never been married or had children. For more than a year, she has been sharing on social media about her first experiences with parenthood and her new daughter. We also learned that precisely 1 week after Robert's mother passed away, Penelope began her custody battle. Penelope's mother-in-law left a multi-million-dollar trust fund, designated only for her biological grandkids. Each grandchild receives an equal share at turning 25 in accordance with the conditions of the trust. Things began to make sense when the time frame was reviewed. 2 weeks before her mother-in-law's passing, Penelope started passing our house on her way home. Only a few days after the death, the custody lawsuit was filed. She wants Emily to inherit anything, but she isn't attempting to get Emily back because she wants to become a mother. Rachel sent us Penelope's text chats with her friend Kate, which contained the most unsettling evidence. Penelope noted that she had to bring Emily back before the specifics of the trust money were decided. She discussed how she could explain Emily's existence to Robert by claiming that she had previously been too embarrassed to do so. She even intended to claim that while she was starting her career, she had temporarily placed Emily in my care. My attorney presented all of this evidence to Penelope's attorney. Then, with both attorneys present, Penelope asked for a private meeting. She revealed everything during the meeting. She claimed that although she felt bad about parting with Emily, she hadn't considered doing so until she found out about the trust fund. She believed she could use the inheritance money to make one for her past transgressions and provide Emily with a better life. Finding out that Penelope had hired a private investigator to follow us 3 months prior, long before she arrived at our door, was what really infuriated me. The PI collected data about our daily schedule and took pictures of Emily at school. Penelope knew just when to visit our home and when to get Emily up from school because of this. Emily is feeling the effects of the situation. She now pulls her blanket into my room every night instead of sleeping in her own room. I discovered her attempting to fit her favorite toys into her school backpack last week. She told me that she wanted to be prepared in case she had to go like her old mom did when I questioned why. At school, she overheard children discussing how the woman observing them was someone's mother who had left. I concluded that Emily needed expert assistance to handle this circumstance. I discovered a child psychologist who focuses on custody and adoption matters. So far, we've had 2 sessions. According to the psychologist, Emily is exhibiting symptoms of anxiousness, but she believes that with steady support and stability, she will be all right. Through all of this, Penelope's parents have been unexpectedly supportive. All of Penelope's emails and communications throughout the years, including ones in which she expressly stated that she would never want to see Emily again, were forwarded to me. They also gave a statement explaining how, after leaving Emily, Penelope stopped communicating with them and refused their assistance. Next month is the scheduled court date. With all of the fresh information on Penelope's actual intentions, my lawyer is really optimistic about our case. In order to prevent Penelope from seeing Emily or me, he is submitting a motion for a permanent restraining order. My parents helped me pay for the more than $12,000 in legal bills I've incurred over the past month. They stated that rather than risk losing their granddaughter, they would choose to spend their retirement funds now. I don't know if I could have fought this war alone, therefore I'm thankful for their support. Update 3. Last Monday, the legal case came to a close. When all of the court records and evidence were provided to Robert anonymously, Penelope's scheme fell apart. He attended the last hearing and discovered the whole truth about Penelope's history and current behavior. The judge examined all of the evidence for 4 hours. The text messages revealing Penelope's scheme to claim the trust fund funds piqued her curiosity the most. In addition, Penelope's hired private investigator testified that she had paid him to follow us months before she even tried to get in touch with Emily. During his testimony, Robert described how Penelope had deceived him and his family for 2 years. He disclosed that, on the grounds that she wants to adopt underprivileged children in the future, Penelope had pushed him to amend the terms of his mother's trust fund to include adopted children. Penelope began her scheme to reclaim custody of Emily after his mother refused. The judge's decision was unambiguous. She gave me a permanent restraining order and dismissed Penelope's custody petition. Penelope cannot approach Emily, me, our house, or Emily's school within 1,000 feet. Additionally, she is prohibited from mailing messages or packages, even via intermediaries. Any infraction will result in an arrest right away. Robert informed me following the hearing that he had already sought full custody of their son and filed for divorce. He discovered proof that Penelope had been financing her custody dispute with funds and resources from his business. She had paid the private investigator and attorneys more than $330,000 of their combined savings. When her manager discovered that Penelope had been using company time and computers to monitor us and plot her custody battle, she lost her job at the investment firm where she was employed. Her parents decided to take her in only after she began intense therapy, so she returned to Florida to live with them. About 30 minutes away from our previous home, we moved to a new one. Although it's in a different school district, my office is really closer to it. Last month, Emily began attending her new school. The principal is fully aware of our predicament and the school has outstanding security precautions. In her class, Emily has already met 3 new pals. I was able to explain everything to Emily in an age-appropriate manner with the assistance of the child psychologist. She picked me to be her father when we informed her that Penelope, her original mother, was unable to care for her. I was finally able to reassure Emily that no one would ever take her away when she questioned whether Penelope would take her away. Although Emily still occasionally sleeps in my room, the nightmares have largely ended. Her new teacher reports that she is adjusting well and that she is once again being her happy self at school. To make her feel more at ease in the new home, she sketched a portrait of our family last week, which only included her, me and our acquired pooch Max. Emily continues to get birthday and Christmas gifts from Penelope's parents. They just ever email me to see how she's doing and respect our boundaries. They have always been supportive of my adoption of Emily, so I send them pictures and updates every few months. I had to pay almost $40,000 in legal expenses for the entire thing, but it was well worth it to keep Emily safe. Last month, I received a promotion from my company, which aids in the financial recuperation. More significantly, we may now enjoy our lives without worrying about what others are doing. We are grateful to everyone who helped us get through this. No one can ever again question that Emily is my daughter in any meaningful manner. We're together, content and secure. That is all that is important. My brother stole my girlfriend and framed me. Now, 6 years later, they're all begging for forgiveness. I, 24M, feel as though the ones who were meant to love me the most have ripped my life apart. I'm still having trouble accepting that this all began 6 years ago. I had been dating Emily, 24F, since high school. We grew up with our parents, who were childhood friends, and our families were quite close. I believed that I would eventually wed her. We had acquaintances, attended the same schools, and even took family trips together. I genuinely thought we would be together forever because she was my first love. Alex, 28M, my older brother, comes next. He has always been my parents' favorite child, smart, gregarious, and successful. Before everything broke apart, I didn't think it would matter. Emily accused me of sexually assaulting her 6 years ago. I was caught off guard. Why would she say something like that when we had been together for years? It was unbelievable to me. Alex intervened and supported her, which made everything worse. He claimed to have been protecting her when he told our parents that he had witnessed me acting improperly toward her at a party. My parents immediately accepted his story. My side of the story wasn't even requested. They had complete faith in Emily and Alex. The entire community turned against me and I was expelled from the house in a matter of days. I had considered Emily's family to be a second family, but they also severed all connections. My reputation, my family, and my girlfriend were all lost. My parents informed me that unless I received assistance for something I hadn't even done, they would not want to see me again. I had nowhere to go at the age of 18. In the end, I crashed at a friend's house, but I was devastated on an emotional level. I resorted to drunkenness and melancholy, doing everything to dull the hurt of being dumped and wrongly accused by the people I trusted most. I had a hard time moving on for years. I started going to treatment, moved to a new city and gradually started to restore my life. But I was still troubled by the treachery. I was so afraid that others would be unfaithful to me like Emily and Alex that dating was practically impossible. I never made an effort to get in touch with my family, and they never did. They expelled me on false pretenses, and I couldn't forgive them for it. Then everything changed around 6 months ago. Lisa, an old friend of Emily's, contacted me. She informed me she had to confess something because she could no longer bear the guilt. Lisa disclosed that while we were still together, Emily and Alex had been seeing one other behind my back. They had been in love for years. They made up the fake accusation to get me out of the picture when Emily decided to leave me for Alex. Alex was confident that my parents would believe him, and it was successful. After I got kicked out, Emily and Alex started dating. They are now married and appear to be leading a beautiful life, while I was left to deal with the fallout. Lisa went to my parents after being honest with me. She wanted them to know that they had thrown away their son for a lie because she could no longer bear to know the reality. My folks were surprised. Lisa clarified how Alex had deceived Emily and how they had both made me the victim. Soon after, my parents contacted me and begged to meet and speak. They were inconsolable, sobbing over the phone as they apologized for not trusting me. They acknowledged that their love for Emily and their faith in Alex had caused them to become blinded. Initially, I was angry instead of feeling satisfied that I had finally been proven right. They wanted to make things right as if nothing had happened, even if it took them 6 years to discover the truth. The worst thing? Alex and Emily are forgiven. According to my parents, family is family, and what's done is done. They have even let Emily back into their lives and still adore Alex. They now want us all to make amends, move on from the past, and pretend that I wasn't destroyed by the previous 6 years. Their most recent attempts to contact me have gone unanswered. I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to forgive them for their actions. Because Alex and Emily are family, they expect me to simply get over it, after throwing me out on false pretenses and leaving me when I most needed them. So, even after my family learned the truth, am I the fool for severing our relationship? Relevant comments. Telling them that you don't want to be a part of their life as long as they continue to have Alex and Emily in them is quite reasonable. They ought to hold Alex and Emily accountable and disown them if they genuinely regret their actions. That makes perfect sense. Definitely not a fool. I don't think I would want them back either, given the harm done in the 6 years it took to find out. The golden child will always be preferred by parents like them. It required a bystander to come forward and expose this horrible plot 6 years after the OP lost all ties to his former life. I would really consider bringing a slander lawsuit against OP's brother and his ex because they are all terrible people. The members of your family wish to ignore this. They ought to have invested the same amount of effort in repairing your reputation and severing your connections with Emily and Alex. Going back to this familial dynamic would only make things worse for you. Moving on with your life and avoiding further pain is the wisest course of action. Update. Hello to everybody. I've read all of the suggestions and remarks made by others. I want to start by saying thank you so much for your support, which truly helped me put things in perspective. Since I tend to act rashly, I spoke with my therapist and close friends following this incident and made a decision. I've made the decision that neither Emily nor Alex will face legal action from me, nor will I pursue retribution of any kind. I simply want this to end after everything I've been through. They and my family are not worth any more of my energy. I need to move on because dragging this through the legal system for slander or defamation will simply make me feel more bound to the past. It became evident to me after speaking with my therapist that retaining the anger was only making me feel worse. I choose not to allow this to rekindle old scars since I've spent so many years starting over in my life, through therapy, overcoming my alcoholism, landing a job I enjoy and developing a new network of genuine friends. I decided to let my family know that I don't want to communicate with them. I clarified that I have no interest in reliving the past or acting as though things could return to as they were. I wished them well and expressed my hope that they would be able to move on without me. I then blocked their phone numbers. Alex and Emily purchased burner phones with new numbers to call me for a few hours, but I haven't returned any of their calls. Their insistence on apologizing and reassembling the family only after everyone else has discovered what they truly did enrages me. Some may argue that I ought to have put up a stronger fight or held them accountable, but I'm done. I no longer require their approval or an apology. I have decided to permanently close this chapter. Positively, news of Emily and Alex's actions spread throughout the community. Since I was raised in a tiny town, I suppose word got around fast. My parents have been publicly humiliated, and people are now boycotting Alex's company. To get away from the city, Emily's parents and I are considering relocating to the country. I am aware of this because I am constantly receiving messages about how my activities are impacting others, which is, to be honest, rather crazy. Nevertheless, I am somewhat proud that they aren't getting away with it. A few others also wanted to know how I made ends meet. This occurred after I'd graduated from high school. With student loans, I was able to enroll in a comparatively good college because of my respectable grades. Before I landed a job in my profession, I worked at a few odd jobs. Although it's a starting salary, it's better than what I had previously. Since I was able to live with friends after college, I must admit that, in spite of my enormous student loan debt, I'm very content with my life given everything I've gone through. I also wanted to address the claims made by some that this was a hoax because of my previous posts. It is a joint account between myself and my pals. We may have come together because we have all experienced trauma and difficult family issues. However, I would like to thank everyone for their support and guidance. 6 years have passed, and it still seems unbelievable that I could have experienced any of this. I felt more confident to take the necessary action after reading your advice. Thank you. I'm hoping that this will allow me to go forward without turning around. I refused to force my son to forgive my brother after he excluded him from his wedding. Now my family's divided over it. Allow her to organize everything, including the location, cuisine, music, etc. In July of last year, Karen made the decision to organize a destination wedding at a posh resort. The invitation arrived, and it was sent to my son and myself. I tried to book our hotel room as soon as the page launched, and I even had a +1 if I wanted to. To be clear, I couldn't risk not getting a room, therefore I had to call the hotel to make my reservation because the link wasn't working. The email confirmation stated room for 2 adults, but I didn't give it much thought because I thought the hotel representative's language barrier might have caused the error. At about the same time, I also purchased our airline tickets. Less than a month before the wedding, in January, my sister-in-law contacted me in tears and told me that Karen had messed up. My kid was 13 at the time, and it seems that the resort was adults only, meaning that no one under the age of 16 was permitted. When I requested whether Leo and I might stay at another hotel, they informed me that my son would not even be permitted to attend the ceremony or the reception because the entire resort was child-free. Disappointed, I promised my sister-in-law that I would discuss it with my son. She insisted that she and Jack wanted to inform him in person, even though I knew how thrilled he was about his uncle's wedding. To be honest, when my son was informed that he couldn't go, he broke down in tears. He begged them to reschedule the wedding, even providing his savings as collateral. After 30 minutes of this, my sister-in-law became irate and informed him that the day wasn't about him and that he was being self-centered. After a while, Leo apologized and retired to his room. My son ceased communicating with my brother after the wedding. Unless it was specifically concerning me, such as when Jack had to relay a message because he couldn't get through to me, Leo would ignore any messages that Jack sent him. Leo would only answer simple queries like, "Can you pass the salt?" or "Help grandma with the plates" at family get-togethers, but he would turn his back on my brother if Jack or Mary attempted to strike up a discussion or inquire about his schooling. To make up for the wedding, Jack and Mary offered to take my son on a special spring break vacation a month after the wedding, but he turned them down and subsequently informed me he didn't want to go. He adhered to his decision, which was terrible because I knew he truly wanted to go there and I wasn't yet able to finance it. The same thing occurred on Leo's birthday. As I do every year, he inquired whether I was going to throw him a party. When I replied that I was, he asked me not to bring his aunt and uncle. He only stated that if they didn't want him on their special day, he didn't want them on his. I attempted to persuade him to invite them because they are family and were truly sorry. When I told my brother he wasn't invited, he started crying. This past weekend, when we were at my mom's house and the topic of Leo's plans for college came up, things became heated. My mother urged Leo to begin making plans after asking him if he still intended to attend the same institution as Jack. Leo responded that he had changed his mind and was no longer interested. In response, my son said he had decided to study something else because he was no longer interested. "I thought you wanted to be like your uncle," my mother then asked. "Why would I want to be like him?" was my son's recent response. I stepped in at this moment and reminded Leo that his rudeness was unnecessary, but the harm had already been done. After hearing what he had to say, my brother and sister-in-law quickly departed. My brother texted me last night, accusing me of being bad for letting my kid harbor this resentment. He even said that I wasn't attempting to mend their relationship because I was jealous of it. I retorted that he was solely responsible for allowing his mother-in-law to arrange a wedding where my child was not welcome and that these were the results of his own behavior. He ended the call. My mother and a few other family members believe that in order for us to move on, I should make my kid forgive my brother, claiming that it was only a little error and that there was no malice. But I don't concur. My kid was obviously harmed, and he should only be given the opportunity to move past his hurt and forgive them when he is ready. Edit. I apologize for not getting back to you yesterday. After viewing the Civ 7 revelation, I became preoccupied with a Civ 6 game. Now that I've read through every remark, I wanted to respond to a topic that keeps coming up. I wasn't at the wedding. It didn't feel right to leave after what had happened, and I didn't want to leave my son alone while the majority of the family was away. Leo's tone, more than the words he used, was impolite in his response to Grandma's query. He provoked his uncle with a tone that I've seen him employ previously and am familiar with. He was attempting to start a quarrel, not only answering an improper query. I have respected his boundaries and understand his pain and anger, but that doesn't mean I have to put up with his acting aggressively whenever he feels like it. As for the actual conversation, let me summarize what Mary, my son and I said. Mary, we made a mistake and you won't be able to go to the wedding. Leo, but why? I want to go and you invited me. Mary said, the venue only accepts adults, you can't enter. Leo said, can't you make an exception? Me. Leo, they can't. Do you recall being informed that they couldn't have kids in the bar when you applied for a part-time job there? That's how it is. Leo says, can't you get married somewhere else? Mary. We are unable to. We have already spent a lot of money on that location. Leo replied, I can give you my savings. Mary. It's insufficient. Additionally, none of the guests want to forfeit the money they have already spent. Leo. My father is wealthy. I can leave if he gives you money. It's unfair. I want to attend the wedding. Jack. Leo, I apologize, but we can make it right. After the wedding, how about we take you to Greece? Leo. I don't want to go to Greece, he said, growing increasingly agitated. I'd like to attend the wedding. Why do you not want me to be there? Me. It was an error, Leo. We were unaware that there was a minimum age limit, but they wanted you there. Leo. That's unfair, then why did you invite me? On my uncle's special day I would like to be with him. This is not our fault, Mary exclaimed, raising her voice. You have to let it go, it simply occurred. I'm sorry you can't make it, but you must quit being so self-centered. It's not your special day, it's mine. It was then that Leo lost it. I tried to comfort him and gave Mary a shut-up look without saying anything, as I indicated in a previous comment. Jack did say something to her, but I was unable to understand what he was saying. Leo apologized and begged to retire to his room after he had cooled down. Jack and Mary made an effort to apologize, but Leo ignored them. My kid requested me to go, but I followed him to his room to check on him. I returned to the living area. "What the devil is wrong with you?" I asked. "It is not your place to shout at my son." "Mary, I apologize, I simply have too much stress. For the past 2 months, my mom and I have been at odds over this." "Me? I don't give a damn. You made it worse when I told you over the phone that he would be disappointed." "Leave. Jack." "Jacob, please. It wasn't her intention. I'll compensate Leo." "Me? I don't care," I said. "Leave." After they departed, I went to see how Leo was doing. I don't remember everything that was said because I don't have a photographic memory, but that's the main idea of what transpired that day. Update 1. In a nutshell, we will no longer be going to family gatherings. My brother promised to respect my son's boundaries after we spoke. He also described the actual events. Leo is currently doing a lot better. Longer update. I told my mother that until things settled down and, more crucially, until Leo felt at ease again, we would both no longer attend family events. She was obviously unhappy, but it appeared that she had now realized how much Leo had been harmed by her persistence. Surprisingly, she explained that she was so adamant that Leo forgive Jack because he had fallen into depression. Leo might become estranged from the family if I made him forgive his uncle, I informed her. When I informed my sister that we would no longer be going to events, she was equally upset, but she understood. In order for the children to continue spending time together, she recommended that we establish our own weekly ritual. Over the last few weeks, Leo has spent time at my sister's house 1 week and her kids have visited me the following. Leo appears okay with this arrangement, and it's beneficial that grown-ups aren't pressuring him to talk to his uncle. I texted my brother the weekend after my post to arrange a private meeting so we could chat. Mary wasn't present. Jack quickly expressed his regret for his actions and the things he had said to me. He verified my suspicions. He had been under stress due to frequent arguments with Mary and had even contemplated divorce due to the severity of the situation. I assured him I wasn't worried about it, even though it might sound harsh. I hoped he would be honest with me about what had transpired. Jack insists that it wasn't until late November that he learned the venue was child-free. But Mary had known for a long time, perhaps since the beginning, as many of you suspected. It seems that this all began when Jack and Mary took Leo to the beach a few years back. My son unintentionally called Jack Dad when they were playing, but he swiftly corrected himself. Jack said it was simply a minor lapse, similar to when a toddler calls a teacher mom. Jack dismissed Leo's embarrassment with a laugh. The catch? During that vacation, Jack's father-in-law, Phil, and mother-in-law, Karen, were present and heard Leo. Knowing that Mary couldn't have children, Karen lost it when they got back from the trip and said she was triggered by witnessing a random child call Jack Dad. Karen became poisonous and hostile toward Mary, making demands such as preventing Leo from being present during her visits, despite Mary's attempts to clarify that it was simply an innocent error. Karen coerced Mary into allowing her to organize the ideal wedding for her only daughter, despite Jack and Mary's initial desire to elope and forego a lavish ceremony. After years of manipulating emotions, Mary ultimately gave in an attempt to maintain harmony. Karen then took over the wedding plans and deliberately picked a location that would not accommodate children. When Mary tried to protest after learning that the venue was reserved, Karen played the victim and dismissed her worries. Even if they slept at a different hotel, Mary said she tried to work out a deal with the resort that would let kids attend just the ceremony and reception. The management, however, refused to change the policy. Mary became more and more nervous as the date drew near, and in November she told Jack the truth. My brother claims that Mary finally snapped at Leo, in part because to her own mother's persistent manipulation and bullying, and in part because she felt guilty for allowing things to get to this point. Jack informed me that instead of excluding Leo and my sister's kids from the wedding, he would have called it off if he had known sooner. However, it was impossible to cancel by November since too many attendees had already reserved hotel rooms and flights. None of this, I informed Jack, justified the way he and Mary had handled Leo, particularly Mary. Even though she was older than 40, she nonetheless picked a battle with a toddler. Because Leo intended to utilize the £2,000 he had saved to attend Jack's wedding, she had screamed at him and called him selfish. I reminded Jack that he had disappointed Leo, who admired him and considered him a hero. Leo had learned that Jack didn't value him as much as he had assumed. I informed Jack that I would go low contact myself and that I would back Leo's decision to stop communicating with him. Jack requested an opportunity to apologize to Leo, but I informed him that he had already done so and that his only option was to wait for Leo to accept it. Although Jack appeared offended, he promised to honor our requests and give us some space and time. Regarding my son, I expressed my regret to him for not advocating for him earlier and for making him go to weekly family events. I informed him that going future, he was free to choose how he wanted to manage that aspect of the family. I informed Leo that I would be there for him no matter what and that I wouldn't be disappointed if he decided to quit going entirely, even if he looked hesitant to do so. I was pleased when Leo proposed that we spend more time together, alone, doing things he used to do with my brother, rather than attending weekly family events. We attended a vintage car exhibition last week, and we're going to see Wicked the following week. It sounds like fun, but I'm not a theatrical person. Leo shouldn't hold back simply because he had a falling out with someone he cared about, I told him, adding that I was concerned he had stopped doing things he enjoyed. In essence, I informed him that he could still enjoy those activities, alone or with someone else. He acknowledged that, in spite of Jack, he had ceased doing them even though he really wanted to. I then made the decision to buy him some games that he had been looking forward to but had refunded following the altercation with my brother as an early Christmas present. He even persuaded me to join him on his PS5 for a game of Final Fantasy Online while he plays on his PC. He seems to like watching me fail, even though I'll admit that I have no idea what I'm doing because the last Final Fantasy game I played was still in 2D. We would appreciate any advice you may have. For my birthday, we ultimately agreed to travel to his ideal location. I was a little disappointed that I won't be celebrating my brother's birthday for the first time in almost 50 years, but all that matters is that I have my son. It's a relief that Leo is content and less anxious about family issues. It's also encouraging that the family appears to be finally recognizing our limits. All I can hope for is that my brother can improve his marriage. Even though I'm angry at what they did, I do want him to be content.